Chapter 467, Banquet in the Imperial Palace. After Lan Jiao left, Meng Qing looked at Lin Feng and said, "She doesn't want to leave, you should ask her to stay." Lin Feng smiled wryly and shook his head. "Jing Yun, do you want to go back to Yangzhou City and then go back to Yunhai sect with the others?" asked Lin Feng towards Jing Yun. "I will go to the Yunhai sect first and I will wait for Mr. Qi and Mr. Hua there," replied Jing Yun while smiling. She was also a member of the Yunhai sect. Even though she used to be a simple ordinary disciple, the Yunhai sect was a beautiful memory from her youth. She had always been sad after its destruction. Being able to see the Yunhai sect's revival was a great thing for her. It's another possibility indeed. "All right then, Yi Shui, you can come with me to the lovesick forest." These days, they didn't need to stay inside the Celestial Academy, there was nothing for them to gain there. "What about Duan Feng?" asked Jing Yun. "He should stay here and practice cultivation. I think the Celestial Academy is more than happy to nurture him," replied Lin Feng with a faint smile. 1,000 ties linked Duan Feng to the Imperial clan, besides, he had extremely high natural abilities and a very pure heart. The best thing for him was to practice cultivation in a peaceful and calm location. Lin Feng wasn't willing to have too much contact with Duan Feng, he didn't want to influence his cultivation. "That's good too," nodded Jing Yun. Jing Yun and Yi Shui then started cleaning and tidying their residence before leaving the palace with Lin Feng. At the academy, everybody was still staring at Lin Feng, which made him smile wryly. Lin Feng suddenly noticed a familiar face before he left the ground of the academy. Nan Shan. "Jing Yun, go to the Yunhai sect alone, but be careful. Meng Qing, take Yi Shui with you and go to the lovesick forest," said Lin Feng. When Lin Feng saw Nan Shan, he knew that something had come up. "Son of Yu Menghe." As expected, Nan Shan was smiling and run towards Lin Feng, so fast that it seemed like he was going to attack him. "Call me Lin Feng, okay?" said Lin Feng while smiling. Son of Yu Menghe sounded too unusual for Lin Feng. "Son of Yu Menghe. I will call you young master instead," said Nan Shan while shaking his head and smiling. "Young master, everybody has seen how strong you were at the national competition. You killed Chu Zhanpeng and Chu Qing. Now, everybody knows that you could become a high official, but for that you first have to pass the test. If there was no test, you would already be a high official. The term high official means nothing to me," said Lin Feng while shaking his head. He didn't care about the high officials. He knew how vast and boundless the continent was, and there were many strong cultivators lurking in the shadows. Being a high official wouldn't influence his true goal. "But even if it is meaningless to you, it is also a way to prove your strength," said Nan Shan while smiling wryly. Many people dreamt of becoming a high official. In their eyes, the 8 high officials were the most amazing cultivators of the country. However, Nan Shan could see that Lin Feng didn't care about that at all. Lin Feng only attached importance to the high official's strength, but didn't care for the fame. "Let's talk about something else. Did the second prince send you to talk to me?" asked Lin Feng. He didn't feel like talking about the high officials anymore. Each time Nan Shan appeared, it had something to do with Duan Wuya, this time was no exception. "Indeed," nodded Nan Shan and said, "Lin Feng, His Highness the Second Prince has been waiting for you for a very long time." "What do you mean?" asked Lin Feng. "Young master, after the national competition at Xiangjiang Lake, some people from the Dragon Mountain Empire arrived to select who was going to participate in the great competition of Shuiyu. They also brought the outstanding cultivators from Tianfeng with them. This way, the outstanding cultivators of Shuiyu will be able to measure their strength against the cultivators of Tianfeng. Shuiyu has organized a banquet for everyone to celebrate the occasion. Some of the most outstanding cultivators of Shuiyu were invited, but because you were unreachable, the banquet was postponed. The people from Dragon Mountain and Tianfeng have already started complaining. said Nan Shan while smiling wryly. He then continued, I've been waiting for you every day, all day. I searched the lovesick forest but I never saw you. Today I heard that you were here and I immediately rushed here to inform you. The second prince wants the banquet to happen tonight. I hope that you can understand why we are in a hurry and accept the invitation to the banquet. Members from the Dragon Mountain Empire had come and Xueyu was the official host of that banquet. Organizing a banquet was an obligation. However, because of Lin Feng, Duan Wuya had asked to postpone the banquet, which shocked Lin Feng. Besides, he also realized that Nan Shan had become much politer to him. That meant that Duan Wuya attached even more importance to Lin Feng. Nan Shan represented the second prince. Lin Feng understood that much. Nan Shan, tell the second prince that I will be there, said Lin Feng while smiling. Nan Shan agreed and said, Thank you very much, young master. I will inform him right away. All right, nodded Lin Feng. Nan Shan then bowed in front of Lin Feng and left. Lin Feng was looking at Nan Shan's back as he left and looked perplexed. A sharp light was twinkling in his eyes. Nan Shan's behavior had changed, he was being extremely polite and courteous. Besides, Nan Shan represented the second prince Duan Wuya, which meant that Duan Wuya also respected Lin Feng. It meant that Duan Wuya thought that Lin Feng was important. Everything has changed because of my mother, suddenly thought Lin Feng. It was a flash of enlightenment. He suddenly understood the mysterious actions of other people which he didn't understand before. Duan Wuya was good to him because he had always known that Lin Feng was Yu Menghe's son. Back in the lovesick forest, Duan Wuya hadn't intervened in Yu Tianxing and Lin Feng's fight and seemed to side with Lin Feng. Yu Qiu's cultivation was then crippled by Lin Feng's mother for attempting to kill Lin Feng. Duan Wuya's people always supported Lin Feng in his actions. It seemed like all those events had been planned by Duan Wuya. Everything went according to plan because Lin Feng was Yu Menghe's son. That was also why the Yu clan didn't dare to openly retaliate against Lin Feng. In Celestial River, Duan Wuya had stolen the heavenly dragon cauldron from everybody. He had astonished everyone with his power and was the victor of a huge battle. He was the only one who had the right to obtain the ancient cauldron. Duan Wuya was monstrously powerful, his strength was incredible, but his temperament and methods were just as incredible. Even though Duan Wuya was good to Lin Feng because he had other motives, he also wanted to help Lin Feng. He never planned to harm Lin Feng and would only benefit him. Back in Celestial River, someone stole the ancient cauldron from Duan Wuya and gave it to me, but I don't know who that person was. Lin Feng thought. That person with the powerful sword aura wasn't his mother, but they must be related. When I see my mother again, I will ask her. Lin Feng didn't know many strong cultivators, he only knew Yan Yu Ping Sheng, but he didn't know who returned the cauldron to him. Why did that person help him? Besides, the ancient cauldron was extremely valuable, why did they give it to Lin Feng? Why didn't he keep it for himself? It was probably one of his parents' friends. Everything started to make sense. Lin Feng raised his head and looked at the sky. Immediately after, he said to Meng Qing and the others, You can leave now, I am going to the Imperial Palace. Be careful, said Meng Qing. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. This time, at the banquet, Lin Feng would meet the people from the Dragon Mountain Empire. Besides, all the cultivators from Tian Feng would also be extremely strong, there were no weak cultivators involved. They would need to compare the strength of all the outstanding disciples. Besides, a conflict between cultivators during the banquet was inevitable. Tian Feng and Xueyu were countries under the jurisdiction of the Dragon Mountain Empire, they probably wouldn't be on good terms with the other party. But those minor conflicts wouldn't be a problem. Nobody would want any accidents to happen during the banquet. The Dragon Mountain Empire also didn't want anything regrettable to happen to the participants before the great competition of Xueyu, during the fighter selection process. Conflicts were unavoidable, and no matter who won the battles, no battle was permitted to end in the death of a selected talent, as it might weaken the Dragon Mountain Empire's chances at victory. The great competition of Shuiyu wasn't only about a single empire. In Shuiyu, there were 3 empires with other countries under their jurisdiction that were competing. The great competition of Shuiyu was the biggest event of the region. All 3 of the empires wanted their participants to dazzle everyone else. The confrontations of all the outstanding disciples were actually closely related to the country's respective national affairs. Young cultivators were the future of their countries. If the young cultivators were strong, then their country would prosper. Meng Qing and the others nodded and left. Meng Qing brought Yi Shui to the lovesick forest, and Jing Yun left for the Yunhai sect. Jing Yun didn't count as a strong cultivator, but in the lands outside of the imperial city, she would be considered very powerful. Lin Feng's silhouette then flickered and he rushed straight towards the imperial palace. Chapter 468, Keep Watch for Me. Lin Feng hadn't asked Nan Shan where in the palace the banquet would be held, he only knew the time it started. He arrived in the vast and boundless imperial palace, but Lin Feng asked nobody for directions. Instead, he continued to fly above the palace. Under him, there were many pavilions, lakes, mountains, and rivers. Lin Feng then saw a part of the imperial palace where he had already been in the past. It was a forest in a valley. When Lin Feng saw that valley, he immediately landed. A group of women in white clothes appeared next to him, but when they saw that it was Lin Feng, they dropped their guard and returned to their positions. They had obviously recognized Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, are you here to see Her Highness the Princess?" asked one of the maids. Lin Feng immediately nodded. "Please wait for a moment. I will inform Her Highness," said the maid. Immediately after, she went into the depths of the forest while Lin Feng waited outside. He looked at the valley. It was still a very magnificent landscape. It was so beautiful, graceful and elegant, just like Duan Xinyi. After a short moment, Lin Feng saw a woman running towards him. She had a magnificent and resplendent smile on her face. "Lin Feng," said Duan Xinyi. She was very happy and excited to see Lin Feng. When the maids saw the princess, who was usually so calm and introverted, smile in such a resplendent way, they were stupefied and looked knowingly at Lin Feng. What magical powers did that young man have? The princess was bewitched by him. Lin Feng, when he saw Duan Xinyi's magnificent smile, he smiled radiantly. Duan Xinyi's smile was so pure that it allowed people to forget about their troubles. Lin Feng walked towards Duan Xinyi, stretched out his hand and fixed Duan Xinyi's hair that was messily covering her face. He then smiled and said, "I was going to come in and see you, there was no need for you to run all the way here." Duan Xinyi's lips shook, she smiled and shook her head while saying, "It's not the same." "What's not the same?" asked Lin Feng, who was confused. "If you come to see me, it means that you want to see me. If I come out to see you, it means that I also want to see you. It's obviously not the same," said Duan Xinyi with a pure smile on her face. She then grabbed Lin Feng's arm and brought him inside the valley. When they passed in front of the maids saw Duan Xinyi holding Lin Feng's arm and were astonished. They all looked at each other and smiled knowingly. The princess was in love. In the valley, there were many cliffs which were decorated with portraits. Those portraits were lifelike and all of the same person. "Lin Feng, look at my paintings, haven't I progressed a lot?" asked Duan Xinyi to Lin Feng while pointing at the portraits she had painted. There were small portraits of Lin Feng, large portraits of Lin Feng, there were portraits of Lin Feng everywhere. He smiled wryly and shook his head while saying, "I look much better in your paintings than I do in reality. Xinyi, why do you waste your time painting me? When you're not here with me, I can look at all the paintings around me and see you," said Duan Xinyi in a gentle and soft tone which made a warm feeling invade Lin Feng's heart. However, he also felt remorseful and uneasy. He almost never came to see Duan Xinyi, his visits could be counted on one hand. Wait until you get married, at that moment, when you look around and only see me, you will get sick of my face. Joked Lin Feng. Well, when are we getting married? Suddenly asked Duan Xinyi while looking into Lin Feng's eyes in a meaningful way. She looked impatient. Lin Feng was shocked and smiled wryly. He was speechless and didn't know what to say. I'm just kidding, said Duan Xinyi while smiling. She then turned her head and didn't look at Lin Feng any longer. She then added, you and Meng Qing can get married, the most important thing is that you keep me around, that's enough for me. Said Duan Xinyi while smiling, but her smile was hiding her sadness. However, she wasn't going to cry, she was already clear about Lin Feng's feelings after their last discussion. The most important thing was that Lin Feng didn't abandon her, that was enough. If she lost her social status, it didn't matter. She just wanted to remain with Lin Feng. Actually, Duan Xinyi's thoughts were simple. She loved him and wanted to be with him, it was as simple as that. Lin Feng grabbed Duan Xinyi's hand and held it firmly, which made Duan Xinyi smile in an even more magnificent way. Xinyi, tonight, the second prince invited me to a banquet. Some people from the Dragon Mountain Empire and Tian Feng will be there. Shall we go together? Said Lin Feng suddenly, which stupefied Duan Xinyi. She looked at Lin Feng and said, really? Do you think that I would try and fool you? Asked Lin Feng while making a grimace and then laughing. Thank you, Lin Feng. Said Duan Xinyi, whose face turned a bit red. Suddenly, some tears appeared in the corner of her eyes and she felt very warm in her heart. Xinyi, what are you doing? Come on. Said Lin Feng while wiping off her tears. He felt powerless. I'm so happy. Said Duan Xinyi using her sleeves to wipe off her tears, she looked free and unrestrained at that moment. She was really happy. If Lin Feng wanted to go to the banquet with her, she would go, not as the crown princess, but as Lin Feng's woman. Besides, that banquet would be exceptional. There would be all the noble aristocrats of the country. Lin Feng would thus show to everyone that Duan Xinyi was under his protection, that was the only reason, but Duan Xinyi agreed anyway. You have done so much for me, everything I do now won't be enough. Sighed Lin Feng. Having Duan Xinyi side with him before was a bit difficult. Duan Xinyi was a princess and she was revered by everyone. Back then, Lin Feng, apart from his title of marquis and officer, he didn't have much prestige. He didn't have enough power to be accepted in the past either. Many people who were courting Duan Xinyi in the past were much stronger and had powerful backers. Of course, the situation had now changed. Lin Feng was Yu Menghe's son and everyone knew about it. She had told everybody that Lin Feng was her son at Xiangjiang Lake. Everybody knew about Lin Feng's background in Shuiyu, so Lin Feng had what it took to be in an intimate relationship with Duan Xinyi. When Duan Xinyi heard Lin Feng, she smiled even more. She then said, I'm going for a bath. Wait here for me. All right. Nodded Lin Feng. At that moment, they had already arrived inside Duan Xinyi's residence. At the edge of Duan Xinyi's bedroom, there was a stone door and behind it, there were hot springs. Only extremely wealthy and noble people would have such a luxurious thing as part of their residence, but Duan Xinyi was a princess so it wasn't surprising at all. Lin Feng, keep watch for me. Said Duan Xinyi in a sweet voice. She then opened the stone door and went through, she immediately started to bathe in the hot springs. Lin Feng could see the hot steam float in the air and hear the sound of water, he could also smell the pleasant fragrance filling the room. Lin Feng suddenly felt uneasy, Duan Xinyi was having a bath and she hadn't shut the door, didn't she trust Lin Feng a little bit too much? Xinyi, are you not scared that I would peep at you? Said Lin Feng. Even though he had a strong willpower and determination, he found the situation enchanting. Lin Feng was lost in wild and fanciful thoughts. "It's not as if you have never seen my body before," replied Duan Xinyi while laughing, which astonished Lin Feng. He remembered that time at the Z government in MOU, which made him feel even more strange. After a short time, which felt like eternity for Lin Feng, Duan Xinyi finishing bathing and came out. Her smile was resplendent and her fragrance was pleasant. She looked at Lin Feng with a seductive glance. Lin Feng smiled wryly and looked at Duan Xinyi. She was beautiful, graceful and elegant. Her face was beautiful and pure. After her bath, her skin was beautiful and smooth, she looked enchanting and her fragrance was alluring. "At least you won't lose face with me next to you," said Duan Xinyi while smiling, which stupefied Lin Feng. She was a princess, how could she be afraid of him losing face? "Xinyi, I will feel like everyone is watching me if I am next to you," said Lin Feng while smiling and shaking his head. "Humph." Duan Xinyi grabbed Lin Feng's arm, her pleasant fragrance immediately invaded Lin Feng's nose, which made his nose slightly itchy. "Lin Feng, let's go," said Duan Xinyi gently. "Go?" Lin Feng smiled wryly and pointed at the sky. He said, "Look, is it the night yet? The banquet hasn't even started yet." Duan Xinyi saw that the evening sun had just started to set, the sky was still quite bright. Duan Xinyi just smiled. She was excited and didn't realize the banquet hadn't started yet. Chapter 469, Beauty Under the Moonlight. On Duanwu Mountain, there is a scenic palace with a beautiful waterfall. It was usually very calm, but at that moment there were various sounds coming from the palace. It was already night outside and the imperial palace was brightly lit. However, the palace on Duanwu Mountain didn't have any lanterns lit. There was only the light of the moon to illuminate the beautiful scene. The moonlight glistened on the waterfall, and the stones of the mountain radiated a pale glow. Duanwu Mountain was beautifully lit by the moonlight. It looked beautiful. Lin Feng and Duan Xinyi arrived together. When they arrived at the foot of the mountain, they saw two guards in silver armor. Seeing guards here was something very rare, but because of the banquet, Duan Wuya had guards prepared to ensure that they weren't disturbed. When they saw Duan Xinyi with Lin Feng, they didn't stop to check their identities before entering. However, the guards were glaring at Lin Feng. Even though everybody knew Lin Feng's name in the imperial city, only those who had seen Lin Feng, for example at Xiangjiang Lake, could recognize him. The guards of the imperial palace weren't able to go to Xiangjiang Lake, therefore, they couldn't recognize Lin Feng. When they saw a young man who was being close with Duan Xinyi, they were surprised, envious and jealous. The princess was extremely beautiful, many men dreamed of courting her. However, surprisingly, those guards had never seen this young man who was with her at that moment, which meant that he wasn't a noble from the imperial palace. Being that close to the princess was probably his good luck. While going on up the mountain, Lin Feng sensed that the guards were glaring at him. He smiled wryly and said, "Xinyi, all those wealthy and noble young men of the imperial palace are going to be angry at me tonight. Don't you think? You've got so many enemies already, a few more doesn't really matter," said Duan Xinyi while smiling in a tender way. Lin Feng had offended a great deal of large powers in Shuiyu, the Yu clan, the Wanshou sect, etc. They were all extremely powerful and influential groups within Shuiyu. If those people couldn't attack Lin Feng anymore, these nobles couldn't even dream of it. Therefore, offending more people wasn't a problem for Lin Feng, his situation wouldn't change. Lin Feng understood what Duan Xinyi meant. He couldn't help but smile wryly over and over again. He had, indeed, offended a number of people, but it was always him being provoked. Lin Feng was only following his path on becoming a strong cultivator, and they became the thorns and thistles in his way. If a strong cultivator couldn't continue walking down the path of cultivation because of a few thorns and thistles, he would die. The only way to move forwards was to cut through everything in his path. In other words, it was necessary for Lin Feng to encounter difficulties and overcome all the obstacles in his way. For you, I would have to do this much, said Lin Feng while smiling, which stupefied Duan Xin. The moonlight was shining upon her beautiful face, which made her look like a goddess. On Duanwu Mountain, there was a huge cultivation field created for battles between cultivators. Under the moonlight, the field reflected the stars to be shown beneath their feet, so while standing on it, people would feel like heroes standing amongst the stars. On that field, there was a pavilion from which one could observe the battles. At that moment, there were many people inside the pavilion. There were many people sitting around the pavilion, and there were fine liquors and delicacies in front of them. But it seemed like they were still waiting for people to arrive, as there were still a few open seats. Nobody had tasted the food or the alcohol, instead they were unceasingly talking. Duan Wuya wasn't sitting on the main seat, which was higher than the others. Instead he was sitting on a seat next to the main one, and his seat was slightly lower. He was sitting amongst a group of people from Shuiyu, who sat in a position even lower than him. Opposite of Duan Wuya and the other people from Shuiyu, at the very front, were some people who looked introverted and had no energy emerging from their bodies. However, Duan Wuya didn't seem to neglect them. Opposite Duan Wuya, it was the prince of Tianfeng, Feng Chen. Besides, the other people who were emitting to energy were members of the 7 envoys of Tianfeng. The 7 envoys of Tianfeng were the strongest young cultivators of Tianfeng, just like the 8 high officials of Shuiyu, but in Tianfeng, there was only 7. Strangely, there was only 6 of them present. On Duan Wuya's left, there were large seats. The 3 people who sat on them looked indifferent. They had a noble aura surrounding them. They were the 3 from the Dragon Mountain Empire. 2 of them were ambassadors for the empire, and one of them was an elder of the Cosmic Pavilion. The ambassadors had invited him to join them in coming to Shuiyu. Besides all of the well-known figures, there were some other people who looked extraordinary as well. They were the high-ranking officials from the court of Shuiyu. Opposite them were the powerful guards of the ambassadors of the Dragon Mountain Empire. There was also some cultivators from the Cosmic Pavilion. Everybody in the pavilion had an extraordinary social status. But what surprised people was that there was a free seat next to Duan Wuya. Nobody was sitting there, which meant there was an incredible person who had still not arrived. Wuya, Your Highness, please forgive me for my curiosity, but, the one who made you postpone the banquet, isn't it the one who hasn't arrived yet? Asked Feng Chen in a calm voice. Actually, the tone of his voice showed that he was reproaching Duan Wuya for postponing the banquet. Please accept my most sincere apologies, this person is extremely important in Shuiyu. Besides, he might participate in the great competition of Shuiyu. I am convinced that the ambassadors from Dragon Mountain can understand my position. Sorry for the inconvenience, said Duan Wuya while slightly bowing in front of the ambassadors. He was extremely polite and courteous. They were the ones who would select the fighters for the great competition. He had to be polite to them. After all, the great competition wasn't only about Shuiyu, it was also about the Dragon Mountain Empire. Well, the ambassadors and the seniors of the Cosmic Pavilion, like me, must be very curious to know who that person is. You postponed the banquet because of him, and even now he's late, said Feng Chen in a low voice while sounding annoyed. I am curious too. Is it the first of the 8 high officials, the Crown Prince Duan Wudao? But if it was him, you wouldn't be sitting there, said Feng Chen mockingly. Feng Chen was the second strongest envoy of Tianfeng. He had heard about Duan Wudao a long time ago and knew that Duan Wudao was the strongest of the 8 high officials. The strongest from the 7 envoys of Tianfeng hadn't come this time. When Duan Wuya heard this, he said in a calm and indifferent way, the first of the 7 envoys of Tianfeng hasn't come, so my brother obviously wouldn't bother to come either. Duan Wuya stupefied the envoys of Tianfeng. He was quite aggressive. His simple sentence meant that Duan Wudao wasn't going to bother himself for Feng Chen. I have heard that the princess of Shuiyu, Duan Xin, Her Highness, is extremely beautiful like a goddess. Besides, she is old enough to marry but still doesn't have a husband. Look at us, envoys of Tianfeng, any of us will happily accept her," said the seventh envoy, which made many wealthy and noble young men from Shuiyu grow angry. The people from Tianfeng wanted to humiliate their princess. "My sister already has someone in her heart, if there is an opportunity, I will introduce him to you," said Duan Wuya while remaining calm. At that moment, the sound steps filled the atmosphere. Duan Wuya and the others were all extremely strong cultivators, they could all hear the footsteps approaching, as they looked to see who was approaching. "Brother, who wants to see me?" said a gentle voice at that moment. Immediately after, a young woman appeared. She looked graceful and elegant, there was nothing covering her face so everybody could see her beauty, they were astonished. They hadn't thought that the princess of Shuiyu would be so beautiful. But they also felt upset, because there was a young man by her side, and he looked extremely close to her, they were even holding hands. Lin Feng. When the people of Shuiyu saw Lin Feng, they were shocked. Lin Feng had come with the princess, besides, it seemed like they were very close. Immediately after, they saw Duan Xin hug Lin Feng closer to her. Then they moved towards the pavilion together. Everybody was astonished. Duan Xin had surprisingly come with Lin Feng and it seemed like they were lovers. Since when were Lin Feng and Duan Xin together? Wasn't there a pure and holy woman, who looked like a celestial being, by Lin Feng's side already? Many people looked upset when they saw Lin Feng. He had too much luck with women. All the women around him were gorgeous. Meng Qing looked like a celestial being, pure and holy, and Duan Xin looked like a goddess under the moonlight. Chapter 470, Toast. Was that seat next to Duan Wuya reserved for that young man who had come with Duan Xin? At that moment, Lin Feng and Duan Xin were slowly walking towards the pavilion. Lin Feng smiled at Duan Wuya and said, "Sorry for making you wait." Duan Wuya looked surprised, he hadn't thought that Lin Feng would come with Duan Xin. He was, of course, happy to see it. "We didn't wait for too long, hurry up and sit," said Duan Wuya while pointing at the seat next to him. He was talking to Lin Feng in an extremely polite manner which stupefied all the people from Shuiyu. That seat wasn't for Duan Xin, it was for Lin Feng. Duan Wuya was postponing the banquet because of Lin Feng. "Xin, why are you not greeting your brother? And why didn't you tell me that you were coming? In that case, you can sit with Lin Feng on his lap," said Duan Wuya while smiling. Many people were extremely upset and looking at Lin Feng with jealousy. It seemed like Duan Wuya accepted Lin Feng and Duan Xin's relationship. Actually, at Xiangjiang Lake, things changed once everyone knew of Lin Feng's status. Those wealthy and noble people who had always despised Lin Feng, thinking of him as an insect, used to think that he had no right to sit with them, but things quickly changed. Duan Wuya had prepared a better seat for him than the ones he had prepared for any of them. Besides, the beautiful princess would sit on his lap, if they weren't jealous of Lin Feng, it would be strange. Lin Feng didn't feel proud or arrogant at all though. He walked to the seat Duan Wuya had shown him and sat down with Duan Xin. Everybody felt even more envious and jealous when they saw his actions. The people from Dragon Mountain and Tianfeng looked at Lin Feng in a strange way. The banquet had been postponed because of him. Behind the envoys of Tianfeng, there was a person who continued staring at Lin Feng and Duan Xin. They were looking at Lin Feng in a strange way. Lin Feng. As if Duan Xin had felt something, she looked at that person and saw it was a woman, she was beautiful and looked alluring. She was stupefied and suddenly waved at her. That woman was the one who had left Lin Feng, Lan Jiao. When Lan Jiao saw Duan Xin's smile, she was shocked and forced a smile. Immediately after, she glared at Lin Feng. No wonder Lin Feng was never interested in her. Apart from Meng Qing, there was another beautiful woman by his side. Besides, she was a princess. Lin Feng also glanced at the crowd. The three most important people seemed to be two middle-aged men and a young man. All of them looked introvert and unfathomable. Besides, in front of him, there were 7 people. Feng Chen and the other envoys of Tian Feng. All of them were glowing with power and strength. Dangerous lights were twinkling in their eyes when they looked at Lin Feng. The 6 envoys from Tian Feng were all very strong and undoubtedly talented. Amongst all of that group, Lan Jiao was the weakest. Besides, there was Yu Tianming, Wu Qing, 2 people from the Yu clan, Yu Qin and Yu Jian. There was also the high official Luo Shui, who all sat below Lin Feng. The other high officials were Duan Wu Dao, Duan Wu Ye and Chu Zhanpeng, who was now dead. Those 8 were the high officials of Shuiyu. Yu Qin was the 5th high official, Yu Jian was the 8th, Luo Xia was the 7th, and since Chu Zhanpeng had died, the 6th position was unoccupied. Under the officials, there was Yun Fei Yang as well. Even though he had always been unknown, he had shown his strength against Shi Qiong. If Yun Fei Yang fought against Luo Shui would definitely lose. The powerful cultivators were the protagonists of the banquet, so they had been attributed the best seats. Besides, there were also some wealthy and noble people from Shuiyu, for example Duan Tianlang. Now that we're all here, let's begin our banquet. Ladies and gentlemen, let us toast the 2 lordships from Dragon Mountain have come here. They traveled over thousands of miles to reach Shuiyu," said Duan Wuye in an extremely polite way while raising a glass of alcohol. Everybody raised their glasses one after the other and looked at the people from Dragon Mountain. Whether it was people from Shuiyu or Tian Feng, none of them were willing to offend people from one of the 3 empires. "Our second glass is dedicated to an eminent person joining us from Tian Feng," said Duan Wuye while raising another glass before downing it. He was clearly talking about Feng Chen. "Duan Wuye, dear prince, you are too polite," said Feng Chen while smiling, and downed his glass as well. "Even though the crown prince, the highest of the 8 high officials of Shuiyu, isn't here today, it is still an honor for us to meet such incredible geniuses. This glass is for them," said Feng Chen. Feng Chen was a prince as well. He understood that he needed to be courteous and polite to Duan Wuye in return. Duan Wuye had raised a glass to him, so he had to return the gesture. "The first of the 7 envoys of Tian Feng isn't here either, but he is probably practicing his cultivation and getting ready for the great competition of Shuiyu. My brother is the same. On the day of the great competition, my brother will be present," replied Duan Wuye. The first of the 7 envoys of Tian Feng and the first of the 8 high officials of Shuiyu would definitely participate in the great competition of Shuiyu. They didn't have to be selected, they already stood at the top of their respective country. If the 2 most outstanding disciples of those 2 countries didn't participate, who would? "What is Duan Wu Dao's current cultivation level?" asked someone at that moment. It was a young man sitting on one of the important seats. Everybody looked at Duan Wuye when they heard him. They all wanted to know how strong Duan Wu Dao had grown. Duan Wuye looked at that young man. It was a young man from the Dragon Mountain Empire. He had come with the ambassadors, which meant that that young man was probably extraordinarily strong. He had probably come to Shuiyu, just like those from Tian Feng, to measure his strength against the other potential candidates for the competition. "I'm not sure what my brother's cultivation level is. Of course, he is much stronger than me," replied Duan Wuye in a courteous tone. "Well, can you estimate his strength?" "Approximately?" asked the person again. He seemed very interested in Duan Wu Dao. In fact, in the Dragon Mountain Empire, many people had already heard of Duan Wu Dao's name because Duan Wu Dao had already visited in the past and had fought against cultivators from the Dragon Mountain Empire. Each time, he won. But seeing Duan Wu Dao was very difficult. Only those who had the strength to fight against him could meet with him. "I would say 7th Xian Qi layer or possibly above," said Duan Wuya while smiling, which made the person frown. 7th Xian Qi layer. Everybody was sighing with amazement. 7th Xian Qi layer. That was already amazing. Duan Wudao's strength was, as expected, terrifying. But when people thought of what had happened at Xiangjiang Lake, they slightly shook. Duan Wudao had attacked the Luoxia sect and none of them were able to avoid his attack. He had easily killed people who angered him. He was, as rumored, extremely aggressive and would not show mercy. The first envoy of Tianfeng has also broken through to the 7th Xian Qi layer, said someone from Tianfeng at that moment, as if he was trying to prove something. I believe you, this is nothing surprising, said Duan Wuya while laughing. Why try to compare people who are not here today? Duan Wuya, you should introduce the person sitting next to you, the one we've waited so long for. Is he the second strongest cultivator of Shuiyu after Duan Wudao? The envoys of Tianfeng were looking at Lin Feng in an aggressive way. They were all nobles and had been forced to wait for Lin Feng for such a long time. On top of that, the beautiful woman was lying in Lin Feng's arms. They were jealous. Therefore, they couldn't help but provoke him and see what he was made of. Alright, since you're interested, I will introduce him, said Duan Wuya while smiling and laughing. He is my sister's lover. Duan Wuya had said it without hesitation, making Duan Xianye's face turn red. She lowered her head and hid her smile. She was so beautiful that everybody was fascinated by her beauty. People were even more jealous of Lin Feng when they saw her reaction. You've probably all heard of the 4 outstanding cultivators which shook the entire country of Shuiyu 18 years ago, right? Asked Duan Wuya to the crowd. The people from Dragon Mountain slightly nodded and said, back then, Ren Ho, His Highness and the 3 others weren't only famous in Shuiyu. In the Dragon Mountain Empire, they were extremely famous for their fighting prowess, especially His Highness. Such geniuses only appear once every 100 years. Some of our incredibly outstanding geniuses from Dragon Mountain are still inferior to them. Lin Feng was calmly listening to them. Duan Renho was surprisingly considered a powerful cultivator in Dragon Mountain as well. His strength was probably incredible. Chapter 471, Life at Stake. Of course, the 3 other outstanding cultivators, Yu Menghe, Zhuge Wuqing and the other whose name is unknown, were all outstanding. Those 4 people all were very rare talents, said the ambassador, which made people from Shuiyu grow proud. After all, those 4 geniuses were from Shuiyu, just like them. At that moment, Shuiyu seemed much better than Tianfeng to the people of the empire. Ambassador, you know so much about my country. You're incredible, said Duan Wuya, making a polite remark. No, I don't, said the ambassador while shaking his head. Such geniuses are known everywhere. Once someone has shown their strength in the great competition of Shuiyu, they quickly become famous in the entire region of Shuiyu, and even in other regions of the world as everybody spreads their stories. Many people's eyes were shining, they were eager to become famous. Could it be that Lin Feng has something to do with those 4 outstanding cultivators? Asked the ambassador while smiling and looking at Lin Feng. Duan Renho was a member of the imperial clan. He could only be related to Duan Wuya and Duan Wudao, but not to Lin Feng. However, Duan Wuya had mentioned those people while introducing Lin Feng. It was easy to guess a few implications from this. Lin Feng must be related to one of the 3 other outstanding cultivators. Duan Wuya smiled and said, Lin Feng is the son of 2 of those outstanding cultivators, Yu Menghe and the one who was unnamed, Lin Hai. What? The ambassador was astonished. 2 of those 4 outstanding cultivators had had a son together. He didn't know this story. No wonder, in that case, the proverb should be, like parent, like son. Lin Feng's parents are geniuses, so he is probably a genius too. He has the strength of the 3rd Xian Qi layer, approximately, so what? He's a weakling. said someone on the side of the people from Tianfeng. Everybody in the pavilion looked at the person. You're sure he has only broken through to the third Xianqi layer? Asked the seventh envoy of Tianfeng. He could determine other cultivators' strength and he thought that Lin Feng's cultivation level was too low. Tianfeng brought this person for a reason. His cultivation level is no higher than the third Xianqi layer. That person was sure. He, I thought that he was a genius, but everybody only gives him face because of his parents. He even made us wait for so long. How shameless. It seems like his parents haven't educated him properly. Said the seventh envoy when he heard that Lin Feng had really only broken through to the third Xianqi layer. He was surprised, but immediately became rude and arrogant. He was making fun of Lin Feng. It was a rare opportunity and he seized it to humiliate Xueyu. Even though I've only broken through to the third Xianqi layer, I can easily kill idiots like you. Said Lin Feng while putting his glass on the table. His voice was cold and detached. When everyone heard Lin Feng's voice, it was as if time had stopped. When the crowd heard him, they were stupefied. People from Xueyu knew how aggressive Lin Feng was and this was no exception. Back when Lin Feng had the strength of the second Xianqi layer, he could easily kill people of the fourth Xianqi layer. Now that he had broken through to the third Xianqi layer, what did a seventh envoy mean to him? But on the side of the people of Tianfeng, everybody was glaring at him with looks of disdain. Third Xianqi layer, nothing more. And he dared act so arrogant. The seventh envoy from Tianfeng had broken through to the fourth Xianqi layer. Since you want to argue, let's fight. Said the seventh envoy from Tianfeng in an ice-cold tone while releasing some ice chi. Lin Feng dared say that killing him would be easy, he had to prove his words. The banquet has just started, keep calm and don't get too impatient. Let's first eat and drink, listen to some music and dance. Battles can wait. Let's enjoy this fine moment and the beautiful scene, battling right now would just spoil the atmosphere. Said Duan Wuya while smiling. He was just delaying the battles but not preventing Lin Feng from fighting. He knew that it would be easy for Lin Feng to defeat the seventh envoy. If they first argued and then fought, the defeat would be even more painful for the seventh envoy. Wuya is right. Let's enjoy this moment. How come no beautiful dancers have come out for us? Said the elder of the Cosmic Pavilion. He seemed to be in a very joyful mood. Duan Wuya raised his hand and clicked his fingers. In the distance, some dancers appeared and started to move towards them. First, they were going to eat, drink and enjoy watching the performance. All the dancers looked extremely graceful under the moonlight, their movements were like an illusion. The women dancers were all incredibly beautiful. There was one who was playing the zither who was particularly beautiful. She had long and graceful fingers, her fingertips were floating across the strings, just like water. Duan Wuya knows how to organize a banquet. Said some people at that moment. Everything looked so pure and relaxing. The moon, the beautiful dancers and the fantastic music, everything was phenomenal. The tension which had appeared a moment before seemed to drift away. The one playing the zither is so beautiful. Unfortunately, she isn't as beautiful as Xin Yi and she also can't play the zither like her. Said Duan Tian Lang which stupefied many people, the princess can also play the zither. Really? In Xueyu, Duan Xin Yi is one of the best zither players. Said Duan Tian Lang while smiling which surprised all the people from Tianfeng. She's extremely beautiful, if she could play the zither or dance for me, the moonlight would be pale in comparison with her. Said the fifth envoy of Tianfeng while looking provocatively at Duan Xin Yi. He looked excited and ignored Lin Feng who was with her. Duan Xin Yi was stupefied and said nothing. Then Lin Feng coldly glanced at that person and said, "Are people from Tianfeng also ignorant and rude?" Duan Xin Yi was a princess and he wanted her to dance for him, how ignorant. The people of the Dragon Mountain Empire and the Cosmic Pavilion are here. The princess dancing for them should be an honor for Shueyu. There is nothing bad about it," said the fifth envoy of Tianfeng. He was using the people of the Empire and the Cosmic Pavilion as an excuse. "I see that you have a sword with you. You should get up and perform a sword dance. It would be your honor that the people of the Empire and the Cosmic Pavilion watch you." "My sword is not for dancing," said the fifth envoy in an ice-cold tone. "The princess is not someone who you can have dance. Even if she does dance, it won't ever be for you. You don't even know the height of the heavens and the depths of the earth. You don't even know your status," said Lin Feng. The music and the show continued, but people didn't feel relaxed anymore. "Hee hee." That person laughed and said, "I have practiced sword cultivation to incredible heights. This is the first time someone has asked me to perform a sword dance, especially a little cultivator who is only at the third Xian Qi layer. You are just a frog in a well." It is also the first time that I see someone entering the imperial palace of Shueyu and telling the princess to dance. The people from Tianfeng must be exempt from basic courtesy, said someone with a smile yet not a smile on his face. It was Yu Tianming, who was sitting just beneath Lin Feng. "Exempt or not, I am sick of wasting words. After the show, I, the fifth envoy of Tianfeng, will see how strong the 8 high officials of Shueyu are. Who do you think you are to have the authority to talk that way? If someone can talk that way to me, it should be him," said Yu Tianming while pointing at Feng Chen, the second envoy of Tianfeng. Yu Tianming's eyes looked extremely sharp, which made the fifth envoy's facial expression change drastically. That person was extremely strong. "Don't be impatient," said Feng Chen in a cold and detached tone. Lin Feng said he could kill the seventh envoy easily. Let them fight first. Humph. Yu Tianming smiled in an ice-cold way. They were convinced that that seventh envoy could kill Lin Feng. Indeed, Lin Feng said he could kill me easily. Later I will definitely fight against him. By the way, let's put something up as a stake, said the seventh envoy. What do you want to put at stake? Asked Lin Feng coldly. If you lose, I get to dance with the princess. If I lose, I will perform a sword dance, said the seventh envoy slowly while staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng didn't reply for a second and took a sip from his glass. He then put his glass down and said, "What gives you the right to get the princess involved? And do you think that anyone actually wants to see such a shameful sword dance? Besides, when I bet with someone, I wager with my own belongings. Getting the princess get involved is rude and humiliating," said Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone. Even if he was sure to win, he wouldn't put the princess at stake. If he lost and let the princess dance with that guy, what kind of person would he be? And what kind of person would people think the princess is? If you want to bet something, put your life at stake, said Lin Feng while releasing some deadly energy. Chapter 472, Drops of Blood. If you want to bet something, put your life at stake, said Lin Feng. His words were like thunder and made everyone's hearts pound. They were all staring at Lin Feng. That guy was extremely aggressive. He wanted to have a battle to the death with the seventh envoy of Tianfeng. The seventh envoy took himself too seriously and thought too highly of himself. What gave him the right to think that he could use the princess as a stake in a bet? He didn't respect Duan Xinyi and had humiliated her by proposing it. Lin Feng wanted to kill him. On the side of Shueyu, everyone seemed like they wanted to laugh with joy. Even though some of them didn't like Lin Feng, the seventh envoy had humiliated Shueyu and their princess. They were rooting for Lin Feng. The seventh envoy was strong, but he was as strong as Shi Qiong. That wasn't bad at all, but Lin Feng, when he had the strength of the second Xian Qi layer, could already kill Shi Qiong, and now he had broken through to the third Xian Qi layer. Killing that seventh envoy was not a problem for him. If he killed that seventh envoy, it would humiliate everyone from Tianfeng who spoke so arrogantly. Tianfeng's people coldly glared at Lin Feng. He surprisingly wanted to have a battle to the death. The seventh envoy's face looked particularly glum. Even though Lin Feng had only broken through to the third Xianqi layer, he was sitting next to Duan Wuya, which meant that he thought highly of Lin Feng. The seventh envoy understood a principle: when strong cultivators challenged somebody to the death, it meant that they were sure they would win. I have broken through to the fourth Xianqi layer. I am much stronger than a normal cultivator of the fourth Xianqi layer. He has broken through to the third Xianqi layer and is sure of his victory, but in reality he can probably only fight against ordinary cultivators of the fourth Xianqi layer. I don't believe that he can defeat me, thought the seventh envoy. Dangerous lights were twinkling in his eyes. Lin Feng wanted a battle to the death, so he would gladly accept. The seventh envoy looked at Feng Chen and the ambassadors from the Dragon Mountain Empire, and then said, "Seniors, I have come with you to Shuiyu. We have come here to battle and learn from each other. That person is pushing me too far. He wants to fight a battle to the death against me. Since that is the case, I have to accept." "I have no objection," said Feng Chen indifferently. He looked at Duan Wuya, who was remaining silent, which meant that he was tacitly agreeing. Thus, Feng Chen couldn't refuse. It would have meant that he didn't think the seventh envoy could win against Lin Feng. The ambassador from the empire looked at Lin Feng and Feng Chen and said indifferently, "The purpose of the banquet was to find young and outstanding cultivators. The goal wasn't to have battles to the death or see anyone injured. However, cultivators will have conflicts and will wager on battles. If they wager their own lives, nothing can be done. Some cultivators don't fear death." When people heard the ambassador's remarks, they understood that he was agreeing. The winner would live, the loser would die. The people of the empire had first gone to Tianfeng. They selected those young and outstanding cultivators and brought them to Shuiyu. They wanted to see who, between the outstanding juniors of Tianfeng and Shuiyu, were the strongest. For the great competition of Shuiyu, they wanted to have the most outstanding cultivators of Shuiyu. The purpose of the battles was to eliminate the weakest by process of elimination. If the weaker ones in the group died, it didn't matter too much. At least, the ambassador didn't think it mattered much. Weak cultivators had no value. If they died, it didn't matter to him. Everybody was well aware of his thoughts, but nobody dared to say anything. "All right," said the seventh envoy while nodding solemnly and staring at Lin Feng. He then said coldly, "I accept your challenge." Immediately after, the atmosphere was invaded by an oppressive silence. Because the atmosphere had become too oppressive, the beautiful girl playing the zither had grown nervous and a string on her instrument broke, bringing the music to an abrupt stop. When the zither stopped, the dancers also stopped dancing. They were all starting to tremble from fear. They didn't know what to do. "Go back, it's all right," said Duan Wuya indifferently. At that moment, nobody felt like listening to music anymore. The graceful dancers left, just like mist floating in the air. The seventh envoy looked at Lin Feng. His eyes were cruel. "Your Excellency wants a battle to the death. I accept." The seventh envoy stood up, his silhouette flickered and he appeared on the vast cultivation field. He was extremely fast. "Come," said the seventh envoy while staring at Lin Feng. People from Tianfeng were also all staring at Lin Feng, and the fifth envoy said, "You proposed a battle to death and the seventh envoy is already waiting, but you are still sitting. What do you mean by this? Could it be that you were just talking big? Could it be that you are nothing more than a coward?" Lin Feng glanced at the fifth envoy. He slowly stood up and immediately left the pavilion. Boom! He took a step and a strong wind rushed straight towards the seventh envoy. "Huh?" The seventh envoy frowned and then said while smiling coldly, "As expected, you've broken through to the third Xianqi layer, but your qi is much stronger than that of a normal cultivator of the third Xianqi layer. However, the third Xianqi layer is still only the third Xianqi layer. You cannot compete with me, you are doomed." The seventh envoy suddenly released a monstrous qi. He had the strength of the fourth Xian Qi layer and looked proud of himself. However, Lin Feng looked calm and detached. He took another step and released a powerful energy which condensed with his qi. After releasing that energy, Lin Feng's qi became much more terrifying. Only people at the peak of the third Xian Qi layer could release such qi. Lin Feng really is talented. Some people from Tianfeng noticed. Lin Feng was very young and the seventh envoy was a few years older than him. However, Lin Feng could already release power similar to the peak the third Xian Qi layer. They only saw Lin Feng walk slowly and then an explosion emerged, as the energy burst out towards every direction. The entire atmosphere seemed like it was invaded by Lin Feng's qi. It was omnipresent and could penetrate into everything. Many people from Tianfeng frowned. How was this possible? Lin Feng had only broken through to the third Xian Qi layer, but in 3 steps, he had released a qi which could rival a cultivator of the fourth Xian Qi layer. How scary! Energy attack, thought many people suddenly. The omnipresent force and qi in the air formed into an energy attack. The energy in the air had many different forms. No wonder Lin Feng was so confident. He had broken through to the third Xian Qi layer, but with his powerful qi and force, he could easily compete with cultivators of the fourth Xian Qi layer. However, it still wasn't enough to fight against the seventh envoy. It seems like we all underestimated you, but it's not enough to compete with me, said the seventh envoy while smiling coldly. He took a step forwards and released a sharp energy which rushed towards Lin Feng. It contained an explosive wind which crashed through the air. The seventh envoy was attacking. It's not enough. Alright, I will add some more then, replied Lin Feng. He raised his head and started releasing even more sword energy. His sword energy was extremely sharp and profound, while a dangerous and deadly energy surrounded him. Boom! The atmosphere started shaking. Lin Feng took another step and everyone's hearts were racing. What strong sword energy! What a strong deadly energy! Lin Feng took another step and suddenly released what seemed like an endless ocean of deadly energy. The people from Tianfeng were shocked and their souls were shaking. Lin Feng had condensed the energy into a deadly sword which rushed towards the seventh envoy. There was nothing but deadly energy and sword energy surrounding him. The seventh envoy formed a hurricane around himself, but his wind energy seemed slightly weaker than before. Those terrifying sword and deadly energies were slowly tearing away at his wind energy. Suddenly, the seventh envoy was terrified. Lin Feng was way too frightening. His deadly sword was definitely going to lacerate the hurricane and kill him. I can't keep moving forwards, thought the seventh envoy as he stopped, then he immediately started to retreat. However, the sword had already reached its target. It was dazzling. Oh no! Many people from Tianfeng suddenly stood up. They were shocked. They only saw Lin Feng's sword streak through the sky and the hurricane start to fade, then they noticed the seventh envoy again. There are drops of blood. There was blood dripping from the seventh envoy's body. It was dripping onto the ground. The red blood was glistening under the moonlight. Since you wished to battle to the death, I granted your wish, said Lin Feng, whose voice resonated through the atmosphere around Duan Wuya's residence. Lin Feng had already turned around and was heading back. The seventh envoy was behind him and his body was slowly collapsing. He was dead. Chapter 473, Fight. The seventh envoy had died. Lin Feng had killed him with a single attack. Even though the people from Shuiyu had anticipated it, they were still astonished. Lin Feng's strength was, as expected, terrifying. He was able to kill a cultivator of the fourth Xian Qi layer in one attack. Besides, they all understood that Lin Feng hadn't used his full strength. The people from Tianfeng were absolutely astonished. They fixedly stared at Lin Feng and at the corpse on the ground. The seventh envoy from Tianfeng was still a young man and was extremely strong. He had arrived in Shuiyu for a banquet, to enjoy food and alcohol, but he lost his life instead. He hadn't even made it to the great competition and was already dead. He was killed by someone from Shuiyu. Shuiyu and Tianfeng were countries under the jurisdiction of the Dragon Mountain Empire, so they were eternal rivals. A short time before, both sides had been very aggressive towards the other. They both believed that their country's fighter would win. However, Lin Feng killed him with one attack, which was like pouring a bucket of cold water to the people from Tianfeng. They were all pulling a long face. Lin Feng had surprisingly killed him, without a shred of mercy. Shuiyu is indeed a good country with extremely strong junior cultivators. However, my country, Tianfeng, came to Shuiyu with nothing but politeness and courtesy, yet surprisingly, you dare to kill one of our fighters. I hope that you can explain yourself, said the fifth envoy in an ice-cold tone while staring at Lin Feng. The people from Shuiyu were gobsmacked. A moment before, they had accepted the terms of battle, and now that the seventh envoy was dead, they wanted an explanation. Ridiculous. You're just shameless trash, you deserve no face at all, said Lin Feng towards the fifth envoy. Then, he joked, could it be that the geniuses of Tianfeng can't accept defeat and are just a bunch of sore losers? Of course, I am indeed sorry. It must have been very difficult for a country like Tianfeng to raise the seventh envoy. Killing him so quickly was inappropriate, joked Lin Feng again while laughing, which shocked the people from Tianfeng. Lin Feng was saying that it was difficult for Tianfeng to raise the seventh envoy, but it was extremely easy to kill him. He was mocking their strength. Maybe, but he was an exception, said the fifth envoy, refusing to lose out. He obviously wasn't going to admit that the seventh envoy was in the wrong and overestimated his own power. If he was an exception, you are free to prove me wrong. Same rules, a battle to the death. Put your life as the stake if you are so confident, said Lin Feng while looking at the fifth envoy. He was calmly challenging the envoy. In Shuiyu, the 8 high officials were comparable with the 7 envoys of Tianfeng. It was a national ranking for both countries. Lin Feng was assuming that the fifth envoy of Tianfeng, even though he was probably extremely strong, he wouldn't be stronger than Duan Wuya. He was probably at the same strength as the 5th or 6th high official of Shuiyu, which meant that he would only be as strong as Yu Qin or Chu Zhanpeng, whom he had killed. Chu Zhanpeng's strength was already clear to Lin Feng. Concerning Yu Qin, Lin Feng didn't know exactly how strong he was, but he wasn't scared of him. Lin Feng was challenging the fifth envoy because he made impertinent remarks, but also because he wanted to measure his own strength and push himself forward. Battles to the death were extremely beneficial for him. Challenging the fifth envoy would force Lin Feng to use all of his strength. If he lost, he would die. Such battles forced out his hidden potential. No one knew what to say. Lin Feng had just killed the seventh envoy and was surprisingly challenging the fifth one. And on top of that, he was asking them to wager their lives. How aggressive! Those who were sitting on the main seats were also watching Lin Feng. They all had radiant smiles. That young man was very interesting. Duan Wuya thought highly of Lin Feng, and Lin Feng had also obtained the princess heart. Lin Feng was surrounded by incredible personage and was also the son of 2 of the most amazing cultivators of Shuiyu, Yu Menghe and Lin Hai. His parents had rare talents. Their son wouldn't differ much from them. His strength was clear to everyone. Besides, Lin Feng's fighting style surprised the people from Tianfeng. They were able to determine that Lin Feng was really at the 3rd Xian Qi layer, but during the battle, with each step, his energy grew stronger and more powerful, borrowing energy from the atmosphere. Lin Feng had a deep understanding of energy and forces, which clearly showed in his previous attack. He released sword chi, which invaded the entire atmosphere. It didn't condense into a sword, instead it took the shape of a sword without condensing, as if the energy was a formless sword. Lin Feng had taken force and energy from the atmosphere and condensed it into his own energy. He released a powerful deadly energy and a powerful sword chi which he used to form an energy attack. That energy attack rushed through the air and killed the seventh envoy with ease. Lin Feng's strength wasn't clear, it was unexplainable and unfathomable. Some people have even suspected that he had broken through to a mysterious cultivation dimension, the Earth fusion dimension. It would explain how he would have been able to release a power equivalent to the fourth Xian Qi layer, while still being at the third Xian Qi layer, another battle to the death. Lin Feng was challenging the fifth envoy while looking calm and unperturbed. Could Lin Feng be so fearless if he wasn't sure of his victory? They couldn't see through Lin Feng. The biggest problem was, how would the fifth envoy escape from the position he put himself in? The fifth envoy was at the peak of the fourth Xian Qi layer. He was much stronger than the seventh envoy, but he still only had the strength of the fourth Xian Qi layer. Lin Feng had easily been able to kill the seventh envoy. Would he be able to kill the fifth without a problem as well? If you like battles to the death so much, I will have one with you, said the third envoy at that moment, which made people from Shuiyu sneer at him. He was being ridiculous. Are you guys going to battle against him one after the other? Said Yu Tianming. Do you think that we, cultivators from Shuiyu, will sit here quietly? If you want to fight him one after the other, we will also fight. We can ask the ambassadors to organize the battles for us. When people from Tianfeng heard Yu Tianming, they remained silent. Yu Tianming also thought that those people were being extremely rude. The third envoy wanted to fight against a cultivator of the third Xian Qi layer. That wasn't a fair challenge. The cultivators from Tianfeng are just shameless bastards. I haven't seen a single outstanding cultivator on their side, but they are experts at flapping their mouths. They're just a bunch of cowards with big mouths. Ha! These envoys dare to regard themselves as infallible. Lin Feng slowly moved back to his seat. Everyone saw Duan Xinyi look towards him in a soft and gentle way while raising her glass in his direction. Lin Feng had refused to get her involved and use her as a wager. Because the seventh envoy had dared to ask such a thing, Lin Feng killed him. Duan Xinyi was moved by the sentiment. Lin Feng attached a great deal of importance to such things, proving that he cared for her, which made Duan Xinyi happy. Of course, because Lin Feng had just killed the seventh envoy, the banquet wasn't as lively as it once was. Everybody had abruptly stopped their conversations and silence invaded the air. Everyone in the pavilion had different expressions on their faces, they were all thinking different things, but nobody said a word. Chapter 474, Sword Intent. Everybody, why the long faces? Being able to sit and drink together is rare. Let's make new friends and be merry, said one of the ambassadors while smiling when he saw that the atmosphere was tense. I forgot to tell everyone my name is Ruolan Shan, said the ambassador while raising his glass, and then continued, being able to meet the eminent people from your two countries is an honor for me. Cheers. Ruolan Shan raised his glass and everybody, out of respect, did the same. On my left is an elder of the Cosmic Pavilion, his name is Yao Tianshu. The one to my right is an outstanding young cultivator from the Empire, his name is Jian Chen. You should speak with them and exchange your thoughts and ideas about cultivation. Yao Tianshu and Jian Chen slightly nodded at the people in the pavilion. Alright, Wuya, you should bring the zither players and dancers back. It's good to enjoy the arts, said Ruolan Shan while smiling. Duan Wuya slightly nodded and waved at some servants in the distance. A short moment after, another group of dancers arrived with another woman to play the zither. Unfortunately, many people didn't feel like enjoying the show. At that moment, every person from Shuiyu and Tianfeng looked tense. Yun Fei Yang grabbed his glass and walked towards where Lin Feng was seated. He then raised his glass in front of Lin Feng without saying anything, he just continued smiling. Last time, I forgot to say thanks. Let's drink together, said Lin Feng respectfully. He then immediately downed his glass. Yun Fei Yang smiled and did the same. It's nothing, don't mention it. You have offended quite a lot of people and must have things to do, so I won't waste your time, said Yun Fei Yang while laughing, and then went back to his seat. Yun Fei Yang had just started walking away when Feng Chen arrived by Lin Feng's side. He passed by Yun Fei Yang but didn't say a word. Today, I am able to see a genius whose talent is extremely rare. You killed my 7th envoy, congratulations, said Feng Chen while smiling towards Lin Feng. He was saying nice things, but in reality, his words were empty. He wasn't showing his real face, he was actually furious on the inside. He was very good at hiding his emotions, which made Lin Feng sigh with exasperation. People who were born into nobility with a silver spoon in their mouths were extremely exhausting to understand. Feng Chen actually wanted to kill Lin Feng, but he hid it behind a gentle smile, which made Lin Feng look at him with new eyes. The 7th envoy was foul, his mouth only spewed shit. That kind of person is a humiliation for you and your country. Fortunately, I killed him so your country doesn't need to worry about him losing your face, said Lin Feng while smiling as if he had done him a favor by killing the 7th envoy. Oh, we should be grateful to you then, said the 3rd and 5th envoys while walking towards him. Their voices were cold. Besides, they released a faintly discernible deadly energy which pricked at the skin. When Lin Feng sensed the energies against his body, he smiled coldly and also released some deadly energy which pierced back towards them. Kacha, kacha. The glasses of the 3rd and 5th envoys broke in their hands and the alcohol splashed all over them. They slightly closed their eyes when their glasses broke, as alcohol splashed over their faces. They were shocked and remained motionless, like statues. At the same time, they stretched their hands up and wiped the alcohol from their faces and then glared at Lin Feng. Drink. Why be so serious? The glasses couldn't handle our immense power, said the 3rd envoy. The crowd looked at them. It seemed like their glasses were broken because they gripped with too much power. However, they released an oppressive energy which targeted Lin Feng and he counterattacked, which was why the glasses broke. They were actually surprised Lin Feng targeted their glasses. Lin Feng doesn't even intend on being polite, they thought. Lin Feng had immediately shattered their glasses and made them lose face. They were covered in alcohol, like a drunkard. He was too aggressive. The 3rd and 5th envoys hadn't thought Lin Feng would be so aggressive. Of course, they had provoked Lin Feng first. Lin Feng wasn't being arrogant, he was only responding to their provocation. He wasn't going to let such detestable people bully him. Those two had secretly released their energy which attacked him, which was clear provocation. Besides, his counter was brilliant. The alcohol is quite strong, said the 3rd envoy while licking his lips. His voice was husky. His face revealed a furious expression, he couldn't hide his emotions well. Lin Feng had thoroughly humiliated him. The 5th envoy was fixedly staring at Lin Feng while releasing his qi. Haha! Duan Tianlang walked over to Lin Feng, the 3rd and the 5th envoy, and raised his glass. He then said while smiling, "Don't be offended. The 7th and 5th envoys have been offended by Lin Feng killing the 7th, but Lin Feng cares about the princess, he needed to defend her honor. I hope that you can understand." Besides, Lin Feng killed the 7th envoy because his actions were rude and he humiliated the princess. If someone stronger than Lin Feng humiliated the princess, he would act the same way and attack them, that's his temperament. When Lin Feng heard Duan Tianlang speaking as if they were friends, he looked at him in an ice-cold way. "Since when are we friends?" said Lin Feng indifferently. He then added, "Get lost." No one knew what to do. Lin Feng was not being courteous at all. Duan Tianlang didn't seem to care. His son was killed by Lin Feng, so losing face didn't matter to him anymore. He had only one goal left, to kill Lin Feng at any cost. What a vicious and sly person. thought Lin Feng. He was fixedly staring at Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang was just smiling naturally as if there was no enmity between them as he moved away. However, he had already said what he wanted and the third and fifth envoys had perfectly understood his meaning. Everything would come back to the princess. If someone offended the princess, even if that person was much stronger than Lin Feng would fight them. The third and fifth envoys smiled and moved back to their seats. Feng Chen then moved over to Duan Tianlang and they started talking like they were old friends, which was extremely strange. At that moment, another two people were walking towards Lin Feng which surprised him. One of them was Lan Jiao, the other one was surprisingly Jian Chen, the young man from the Dragon Mountain Empire. "You first," said Jian Chen to Lan Jiao politely. Lan Jiao was lacking in manners so she just moved in front of him without a word. She then raised her glass and said to Lin Feng, "You're quite fast, one on the left, one on the right, you kiss one, you embrace the other." Lin Feng was stupefied and then smiled wryly. Why was she saying such things? Jian Chen was stupefied as well. It seemed like Lan Jiao and Lin Feng knew each other. Besides, her words were a bit strange. Lin Feng had two people by his side. That meant that apart from Duan Xianyi, he had another woman. In that case, Lin Feng was probably very lucky with women. Besides, when Duan Xianyi heard those words, she didn't look surprised. Lin Feng and Lan Jiao raised their glasses together but Lan Jiao didn't drink, she smiled and said, "That toast was not for you." She then looked at Duan Xianyi, nodded and said, "Princess, your highness, that guy is very lucky to have your heart." "I am the one who's lucky," replied Duan Xianyi in a soft and gentle tone. She then toasted with Lan Jiao and took a sip from the glass. She saw that Lan Jiao looked a bit strange, she looked jealous. Lan Jiao nodded at Duan Xianyi and looked at Lin Feng again, "I wish you the best." Then, she turned and went back to her seat. After Lan Jiao left, Jian Chen sat down next to Lin Feng. He then said, "You're also a sword cultivator." "No, I'm not. I don't have a sword spirit and I don't practice sword cultivation, I only know a bit about swords, that's all," said Lin Feng modestly. Jian Chen shook his head and said, "Your sword skills already contain sword intent. If you are not a sword cultivator, then who is?" "Intent?" Lin Feng was surprised. Even though he had already heard about sword intent, he didn't really know what that meant. Indeed, sword intent means that a sword seems to have a life of its own, said Jian Chen while nodding. He was very interested in Lin Feng. Lin Feng had only broken through to the third Xianqi layer but already had sword intent. It was clear to him that by relying on sword intent, Lin Feng could easily compete with cultivators of the fifth Xianqi layer. Chapter 475, The Realm of Perception. Sword intent means that the sword had a life of its own, thought Lin Feng as if he had just discovered something unfathomable. The sword fusion couldn't be the last step on the path of sword cultivation. He had only broken through to the Xianqi layer, he was far from reaching the peak of any cultivation path. Perhaps sword fusion was only the beginning. Jian Chen was from the Dragon Mountain Empire, he obviously knew more than Lin Feng. Him knowing much more about advanced cultivation than Lin Feng wasn't very surprising. "You say that I already have sword intent. What does that mean?" asked Lin Feng while looking at Jian Chen. At that moment, he sounded modest and humble, he was focusing intently as he asked. There are many types of sword intent, there are many ways to practice sword cultivation. Everyone understands swords in different ways, that gives birth to different types of swords. Extremely strong sword cultivators can use different types of sword intent. The deadly sword that you just used contained a powerful deadly energy, that deadly energy is actually sword intent because it contains the will of the sword and its determination to kill. Jian Chen was sitting with Lin Feng as he explained, he was very interested in Lin Feng. In the Dragon Mountain Empire, there were many geniuses, but Lin Feng already had such a high cultivation level at such a young age. He could already use sword intent, besides, he didn't even know he was using it. Lin Feng's natural abilities weren't what surprised Jian Chen the most. Actually, Jian Chen had already seen many people as young as Lin Feng who had broken through to the third Xian Qi layer or higher, but Lin Feng's power of understanding was awe-inspiring. Many people stayed ignorant their entire lifetime and never grasped sword intent. Some people only understood sword intent after having broken through to the Tian Qi layer. Determination to kill, Lin Feng was stupefied. He had heard Yan Yuping Sheng say something similar in the past, when he was playing the zither and teaching Lin Feng about deadly energy. Besides, the black sword from the celestial book had merged with the deadly energy. Originally, that was what gave birth to the sword intent. It seems like I can use two types of sword intent, thought Lin Feng. When he was at Mount Sword, he had used his Cosmos Burning Sun skill and had used the power of the sun. He had a breakthrough and understood the three sword attacks at a much deeper level, the Scorching Sword, the Sword of the Rising Sun and the Sword of the Setting Sun. Could it be that the evil swords entered my body because of my understanding of sword intent? Suddenly thought Lin Feng. The seal on the evil swords had broken and the evil swords entered into his body. The number of people who used to practice there was numerous, but the evil swords had chosen him. Perhaps it was related to the sword intent Jian Chen was talking about. To what kind of dimension does sword intent belong in? Asked Lin Feng, he was curious. He. Jian Chen laughed and slightly shook his head. He then said, "You are very curious. Even though you can use sword intent now, it is also the weakest type of sword intent. That is only the first layer of the dimension." Is sword intent divided into different levels? Asked Lin Feng, stupefied. He was getting more and more curious. Of course. Sword intent is divided into 9 levels. Those who have reached the first level of the dimension can slaughter people of the same layer of cultivation. They can also fight against cultivators of higher cultivation layers than themselves. Besides, if you had reached the second level of the sword intent dimension, you would be able to kill people on a higher cultivation level than you who have also reached the first level of intent. Those who have reached the 9th level don't even need a sword, they can kill people with a thought. That level means that a cultivator doesn't need to use a sword anymore and have become selfless. Said Jian Chen slowly. Lin Feng had discovered a whole new world of cultivation. Those who had reached the 9th level of the sword intent didn't even need a sword to kill people. How terrifying! Their swords really had a life of their own. It was the first time that Lin Feng heard such things. Before, he was only trying to understand swords to increase his strength. Then, you're probably wondering what happens after your sword intent reaches level 9. Said Jian Chen while smiling. He then smiled even more and said, "There is the realm of perception. Those who understand the realm of perception can cut apart mountains and rivers. If they get angry, they can destroy an entire city using their sword and create a bloodbath wherever they please. Those who can do that are mainly people of the Zun Qi layer, realm of perception." Lin Feng was astonished. So after sword intent, there is the realm of perception. Not only on the path of sword cultivation, every cultivation path will lead to a different type of perception realm. In the case of swords, no matter if it's you or me, we are both extremely far from understanding the realm of perception. Said Jian Chen slowly. Before understanding the realm of perception, people need to first understand the earth fusion dimension. Not just understand a little, they needed to fully comprehend the earth fusion dimension and then surpass it. That requires a monstrous strength, only that could give birth to the realm of perception. Cultivators strong enough to reach that level are usually of the Zun Qi layer. Zun Qi layer cultivators were monstrously strong. Jian Chen couldn't even dare to imagine how strong they were in comparison. A Zun Qi layer cultivator could control a small empire. In the 13 countries of Shuiyu, they were overlords. They could kill an army of 10,000 by simply raising their hand. Realm of perception. Zun Qi layer cultivators, thought Lin Feng. He then remembered back to the restricted area of the Z government. The extremely strong cultivator there was of the Zun Qi layer, so he must have been on that level. Lin Feng knew that he was extremely far from reaching that level. Apart from being able to annihilate an entire city, those cultivators could also transform their blood into a blood spirit and pass it on to their next generations. Provided that the descendants continued to have children, the blood spirit would never be lost and would carry from generation to generation. In Shuiyu, if the Duan clan and the Yu clan had a blood spirit, it was because a Zun cultivator had created a blood spirit for them, which was also why they held so much power in Shuiyu. It was because a cultivator of the Zun Qi layer passed down his blood spirit to his descendants, nothing more. If there had been a cultivator of the Zun Qi layer alive in Shuiyu, he would be able to reign over it as an overlord. Even the crown prince of Shuiyu wouldn't want to offend such a powerful cultivator. I need to understand my own realm of perception, thought Lin Feng. Immediately after he smiled at Jian Chen and said, "Thank you so much for imparting me with your wisdom. Don't mention it, it's nothing. I think that you will come to understand those things in the future even without my help," said Jian Chen while smiling, and he then continued, "Come, let's toast to sword intent and to your future. I can't wait to meet you again at the great competition of Shuiyu." Jian Chen and Lin Feng downed their glasses and smiled at each other. Lin Feng was holding his glass with 2 hands as a sign of respect towards Jian Chen. Jian Chen was much stronger than all those envoys from Tianfeng, but he didn't have any arrogance. He looked calm and relaxed, he had a calm and prideful aura. Extremely strong and talented cultivators usually weren't extremely arrogant and obnoxious, but most of them were stubborn with an unyielding personality. After drinking with Lin Feng, Jian Chen went back to his seat. Lin Feng slowly turned his head and looked at the people from Tianfeng. They were all staring at him with unfriendly glares. Lin Feng felt uneasy being stared at by all of them. "What a bunch of pesky flies," said Lin Feng, which stupefied them. They were all looking at him in an ice-cold way. That guy was too arrogant, he was looking down on all of them. Duan Xinye's beauty is unparalleled. In Tianfeng, we rarely see such beautiful women. Besides, we heard that she can play the zither and can dance. We want to hear her play the zither and have her dance. That would be such a great show. Our trip to Shuiyu would be worth it if we could see her," said the third envoy with a smile, yet not a smile on his face. He sounded like he was joking, yet he repeated the same mistake of the 7th envoy, making other people grow tense. He was doing exactly as Duan Tianlang said. He wanted to force Lin Feng into a fight without having to directly challenge him. He only needed to make jokes about the princess and Lin Feng would immediately fight for her, even if he was much stronger than Lin Feng. The third envoy is right, it was such a long and difficult trip to come to Shuiyu. If we don't see the princess dance for us, it would be such a pity. Wu Ye and Xinyi, don't let us down, said the 5th envoy, who really felt like laughing. He was about to burst into a fit of laughter. Besides, Feng Chen was also smiling while sipping his alcohol, as if he was watching a great show. He was still thinking about the fact that his 7th envoy had been killed. He wanted to avenge him. When Duan Xinyi heard the jokes, she pulled a long face and glanced at Lin Feng. At that moment, Lin Feng's face looked ice-cold and he slowly put his glass onto the table. Kacha! Lin Feng slowly released a deadly energy into the air. "Do you think that's funny?" said Lin Feng in a deep voice. He then raised his head and looked towards the envoys. His facial expression was dark and ruthless. Chapter 476, Humiliating Each and Every Single One. Lin Feng slowly stood up and started walking. However, he didn't go in the envoy's direction, which surprised all the people from Shuiyu. What was Lin Feng doing? Everyone was looking at Lin Feng and wondering what he was doing. But very quickly, they understood because Lin Feng arrived in front of Duan Tianlang. He then stopped and looked down at Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang slightly raised his head and stared at Lin Feng coldly. Duan Tianlang? Ha! Joked Lin Feng. He then raised his foot. Immediately after, a cracking sound spread through the air. Lin Feng smashed Duan Tianlang's glass and redwood table under his foot. Everybody was stunned. Lin Feng was extremely aggressive. With his foot, he was showing just how much respect he had for Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang was fixedly staring at Lin Feng in an ice-cold way. He wanted to say something but the words wouldn't come out. After Duan Han had been killed by Lin Feng, Duan Tianlang cultivated with all his might. He progressed, but he found out that even though he had made a breakthrough, Lin Feng had greatly surpassed him. He couldn't compete with Lin Feng anymore. In the past, he used to bully Lin Feng. He went to the Yunhai sect and used the Qi Xia army to destroy it. He was imposing and domineering. He was incredible. Back then, Duan Tianlang used to think that Lin Feng was a nobody, a tiny little insect. Even though he had a high level of talent, Duan Tianlang still despised him. Duan Tianlang had exterminated the Yunhai sect and bullied Lin Feng. After that, in MOU, Duan Tianlang plotted against Lin Feng and made false charges against him. He had also collaborated with the enemy and had them kidnap the princess, and hundreds of thousands of troops had died because of him. Then he blamed Lu Lan for it and had him sentenced to death. Back then, Duan Tianlang was still toying with Lin Feng. However, at that moment, Lin Feng was standing in front of Duan Tianlang and had crushed his table along with Duan Tianlang's food and drink. Perhaps only now did Duan Tianlang realize that Lin Feng wasn't the same person he could bully. At that moment, Lin Feng was already standing in front of him in a majestic and domineering way. He didn't need to think about the consequences anymore. He could just step all over Duan Tianlang's dignity, just like he did to the table. Duan Tianlang? When Duan Tianlang thought about Lin Feng's previous words, he realized that Lin Feng had announced that he didn't fear him anymore. There wasn't a difference in status between them. Lin Feng was Yu Menghe's son, he had the blood spirit of the Yu clan and was a dual spirit holder. Duan Tianlang also had a blood spirit, but compared to others his wasn't powerful enough, besides his social status wasn't any higher than that of Lin Feng's. On top of that, Duan Wuya was on Lin Feng's side and Duan Tianlang had past enmities with Duan Wuya after collaborating with MOU. Everybody was calmly and silently watching the scene. This was between Lin Feng and Duan Tianlang. Even though some people hated Lin Feng, they didn't dare say a word. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of their backing anymore. Maybe if they said the wrong thing and angered Lin Feng, he would just kill them. What do you want? Asked Duan Tianlang, finally opening his mouth and breaking the oppressive silence. However, the atmosphere was still cold and oppressive as everyone watched on. What do I want? Said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. Duan Tianlang, you perfectly know how much I hate you, either you live, or I live, I refuse to share the same sky as you. But today, the second prince made great efforts to organize this banquet. If I didn't come and make trouble for you, it's not because I don't dare, it's only for the sake of the second prince. But you are ridiculous. I was allowing you to keep your life, yet you provoke me, you revealed your evil intentions and tried to get the princess involved. Duan Tianlang, do you think that you are smart? Because I don't, I think that you're as stupid as a pig. Lin Feng's words were the same as if he had slapped Duan Tianlang directly across the face. Duan Tianlang's petty tricks made him look like a stupid pig. Duan Tianlang's face turned purple, his heart felt painful, but he didn't refute Lin Feng's words. In the world of cultivation, the strong could speak and the weak would listen. In the past, he had a higher social status than Lin Feng and was also stronger, therefore, he could humiliate him. Now, Lin Feng had a higher social status than him and was also stronger. Therefore, Lin Feng could stand there and openly insult him. Duan Tianlang, in my eyes, you are a dead man walking, your fate is sealed. It's more ridiculous to me that you would dare to provoke me, said Lin Feng in a cold tone. Today, after the banquet, I will be coming for you. When Lin Feng finished talking, he turned around and left, leaving Duan Tianlang stupefied. Lin Feng announced that he was going to come for him. Lin Feng had also said that after the banquet, he would come for him. Was he planning to openly kill him? Duan Tianlang suddenly felt terrified. Lin Feng wanted to kill him and he wasn't afraid of announcing it. It was clear to Duan Tianlang how much enmity they shared. He had destroyed Lin Feng's sect and repeatedly attacked him. If Lin Feng said he refused to share the same sky as Duan Tianlang, it didn't mean that Lin Feng would die, instead it meant the death of Duan Tianlang. Only one of them could remain alive under the shared sky. When Duan Tianlang thought about it, he suddenly felt like he was at his wit's end. He had thought about the millions of plots he would use to kill Lin Feng, but now he was realizing that Lin Feng could kill him at any moment. Could he escape? Trying to secretly escape from the banquet wouldn't work. If Duan Tianlang escaped, he would be able to live on, but would Lin Feng let him go so easily? He would find him sooner or later. Duan Tianlang's mind was spinning. He was suddenly regretting that he took action. He regretted that he created enmity between himself and Lin Feng. He was regretting the fact that he influenced people to humiliate the princess. However, Lin Feng didn't go straight to the envoys, he went straight to Duan Tianlang, who incited them. Lin Feng didn't know what Duan Tianlang was thinking at that moment and he didn't care. Now, he was facing the envoys from Tianfeng, who considered themselves as extraordinary. He walked to the sixth envoy and stopped in front of him. He had already killed the seventh envoy, so the weakest of the 7 envoys was now the sixth. I, Lin Feng, am not one of the 8 high officials. I am not famous across the world. I can't compete with you, the envoys from Tianfeng. You are all incredibly strong and amazing. However, you humiliated the princess, so I, Lin Feng, must fight. Lin Feng was standing in front of the 6th envoy and speaking slowly. He then continued, I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge you to a battle to the death. Only when one of us dies, will the battle come to an end. Lin Feng was making himself seem like a nobody and challenging the 6th envoy to battle. That move stupefied everyone, they were all staring at Lin Feng. That guy. The 6th envoy was also looking at Lin Feng but remained silent. He was irresolute. He was stronger than the 7th envoy but only by a little. Lin Feng was able to kill the 7th envoy in one attack, so he wouldn't fare any better against him. If he fought, he would probably die. 6th envoy, Your Excellency, do you accept my challenge or not? Asked Lin Feng when he saw that the 6th envoy remaining silent. Lin Feng, however, was smiling coldly. The 6th envoy pulled a long face and immediately replied, I am not interested. When Lin Feng heard the 6th envoy's answer, he laughed in an evil way and said something in a low voice, yet it was distinct enough for everybody to hear. The 7th envoy was a piece of trash and the 6th envoy is a coward. 2 of the 7 envoys have already shown their true colors. When the people from Tianfeng heard Lin Feng, they all pulled a long face and glared at Lin Feng. But Lin Feng didn't need them to glare at him. He immediately walked to the next one, the 5th envoy. 5th envoy, said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge the 5th envoy, Your Excellency, to a battle to the death. Lin Feng's voice was the same, he sounded humble when challenging the envoy to battle. Lin Feng had challenged the 6th envoy but he had refused, so he immediately challenged the 5th envoy. All the people from Tianfeng were pulling long faces. Lin Feng wanted to humiliate each and every single one of them. He wanted to destroy the reputation of the 7 envoys from Tianfeng. If the 5th refused, would Lin Feng challenge the 4th? Chapter 477, The Confrontation. The 5th envoy was stupefied. He began to stare fixedly at Lin Feng. It was the second time that Lin Feng was challenging him to a battle to the death. Would he fight? Or not? The 5th envoy was shaking. He had refused to fight the first time and had already lost a great deal of face. Lin Feng was challenging him again. Could he refuse a second time? Especially now that the 6th envoy refused. If he refused again, that would be a huge blow, not only to his reputation, but also to the other envoys and their reputation. They would all be considered as cowards and weaklings, but the most important detail was that Lin Feng had only broken through to the 3rd Xianqi layer. If someone of a higher cultivation had challenged them and they refused, it would be very normal, but Lin Feng's cultivation level was lower than theirs. He was challenging them and they were refusing, so when the rumor spread, they would seem like cowards and weaklings. If you're scared to fight, just say so, said Lin Feng when he saw that the 5th envoy wasn't replying. It didn't matter either way to him. You must have a death wish, said the 5th envoy while looking at the 4th envoy to his side. Lin Feng was challenging them one after the other, so his opponents were also getting stronger as he continued. They thought that Lin Feng was definitely going to die if he continued his challenges. I refuse, said the 5th envoy finally, which made Lin Feng smile radiantly. You refuse to fight, so stop talking shit. You were so puffed up with pride a moment ago, but now you're running away like a coward. Anyway, you're just another example of the trash amongst the 7th envoys. Lin Feng profoundly despised them after their actions. Then he continued and walked down the line to the 4th envoy. I, Lin Feng, can see that today each and every single one of the 7th envoys enjoys talking about their dignity and grandeur, as if the 7 envoys are all incredibly amazing, but in the end it's filled with weaklings and cowards. I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge you, the 4th envoy, to a battle to the death, said Lin Feng. This was his 3rd challenge. Everybody remained silent. There was only Lin Feng's voice resonating through the air. Lin Feng was challenging the 4th envoy this time. Would he fight or would he back down? If the 4th envoy didn't fight, only the 2nd and 3rd envoy would remain. Everybody was staring at the 4th envoy. It seems like he's going to fight this time. Many people's eyes were excited. Lin Feng was already challenging the 4th envoy. There was no reason for him to refuse. He won't fight, said a clear voice at that moment, but the 4th envoy wasn't the one who spoke. It was Prince Feng Chen. Feng Chen had taken the initiative to prevent the 4th envoy from accepting the challenge. When the 4th envoy heard Feng Chen's words, he immediately refused. Lin Feng didn't say anything. He didn't need to say anything, his actions spoke louder than words. The 4th envoy had just refused. He was humiliating himself and the 7 envoys. None of the envoys dared to fight. Lin Feng then calmly walked to the 3rd envoy. He looked as calm and serene as before. He then said coldly, I, Lin Feng from Shuiyu, challenge you to battle to the death. Wee. Everybody was absolutely astonished and they all involuntarily sucked in a deep breath. Lin Feng was surprisingly challenging the 3rd envoy from Tianfeng. How aggressive and domineering. The 3rd envoy was ranked 3rd, but Lin Feng wasn't scared at all. He was challenging him. All the people from Tianfeng were stupefied. Lin Feng was being way too aggressive. He was going to get himself killed. The 3rd envoy had already broken through to the 5th Xianqi layer. They didn't believe that Lin Feng, who was of the 3rd Xianqi layer, could fight against somebody whose level was higher by 2 layers. Lin Feng was courting death. The 3rd envoy remained silent and stood up. He then looked at Lin Feng coldly and said, I accept your challenge. When he finished talking, he released a deadly energy which rushed towards Lin Feng. After all those cowards, there's finally someone who accepts," said Lin Feng while smiling indifferently. Lin Feng's silhouette flickered and he appeared on the cultivation field outside of the pavilion, basking in the moonlight as his clothes fluttered in the cold wind. The third envoy looked over then charged towards the cultivation field, facing Lin Feng. They were both staring at each other. The wind was howling through the air and both fighters' clothes were fluttering. The scariest part was that wind seemed to contain sword energy. The third envoy, just like Lin Feng, used swords. "I will tell you something, if they refuse to fight against you, it's not because they are weak or cowards, it's because they wanted you to die spectacularly under my sword," said the third envoy. He had a sword on his back, which he immediately unsheathed. It released a cold energy and then started dancing on the wind. His sword was dazzling, it looked like it was dancing with the wind, it was magnificent. However, when Lin Feng saw that magnificent sword, he smiled in an evil way. Wind. His silhouette flickered and he moved like the wind. His speed was miraculous, it was as if he was a fierce gale in the atmosphere. There was no whistling sound, no sound at all, nothing. Lin Feng's body seemed to be weightless, he looked like he was drifting on the wind, just like a falling leaf, except his speed was incredible. In a flash, he arrived in front of the third envoy. Lin Feng slightly rose his hand and a single finger pierced towards the third envoy. A whistling sword energy emerged from his finger and it diffused a terrifying sword energy. The sword chi was extremely sharp. Huh! The third envoy was stupefied, Lin Feng's speed was out of this world. In a flash, he had immediately appeared in front of him. That finger was filled with a sharp and powerful sword energy. Even though it wasn't monstrously powerful, if it reached the third envoy's chest, it was more than enough to kill him. Retreat. The third envoy immediately moved back. His sword wasn't dancing anymore, it had stopped in midair. Psh! A subtle sound spread in the air. Lin Feng's finger reached the third envoy and pierced his clothes and left a bloody mark across his chest. He was only struck by the fingertip from the finger attack and it almost killed him. The third envoy moved his sword back, he was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. How dangerous! He had been careless for less than a second and had been injured by Lin Feng. Swords aren't used to create spectacles, joked Lin Feng, which stupefied the third envoy. He was surprisingly humiliating his ability to use a sword, saying that it wasn't used to create a performance. "I will show you the depths of my sword skills," said the third envoy. His sword created a silver flash in the air. "Star sword!" shouted the third envoy in a deep voice. Multiple lights appeared, they looked like stars in the night, that attack looked magnificent. Lin Feng released a terrifying deadly energy then bombarded the atmosphere with it, the ground and the air started to shake under the pressure. The deadly energy was crashing through the air, it was terrifying. Sword intent, that deadly sword energy was filled with sword intent. The crowd was watching the battle. The third envoy was using his star sword which transformed into a constellation of stars, it was dazzling and resplendent. However, Lin Feng's attack was the total opposite, there was only a terrifying deadly energy. Lin Feng's cultivation wasn't as high as that of the third envoy but his deadly energy made his chi and force much more powerful. Deadly chi was rolling all around him and merging with his deadly force. Boom! The third envoy's sword arrived in front of Lin Feng, but all the stars in the third envoy's attack started to explode and were devoured by the deadly energy. Lin Feng took a step forward and another explosion spread through the air. His black deadly energy swallowed the stars until only blackness remained. Then, Lin Feng's deadly energy formed into a black sword. Lin Feng's attacks were becoming more and more terrifying. "Infinite constellation!" shouted the third envoy. His sword streaked across the sky. What seemed like a rain of silver asteroids started to fall from the sky. Boom! Lin Feng dashed forward, his black energy was crashing against the silver lights, annihilating everything in his path. Lacerate! Shouted Lin Feng furiously. His black sword collided with the asteroids of the third envoy's attack as a storm of deadly energy invaded the atmosphere. 9-star annihilation! Shouted the third envoy. 9 stars formed and shot forward in rapid succession. It was dazzling, the lights illuminated everything. They seemed like they held the destructive power of a supernova. Lacerate! In Feng's black sword shone again. A rumbling sound spread through the air and a strong wind filled with deadly energy rushed forward. The third envoy continued to close in on Lin Feng with each attack. He had to kill Lin Feng, but the force of his 9-star annihilation was growing weaker and weaker. However, at that moment, in the middle of the black deadly energy, Lin Feng slowly raised his left hand, revealing a black lotus. It looked calm and tranquil. That black lotus followed Lin Feng's movements and moved towards the third envoy. The monstrous deadly energy created a storm as the lotus drifted through the air. Chapter 478, Terrified. Lin Feng's black lotus contained a monstrous deadly energy. Nothing could remain in that deadly energy storm, it was annihilating everything. The 9 stars got swallowed by the black lotus and there was no light to be seen. The third envoy was astonished. He suddenly looked terrified. That black lotus was terrifying, it could swallow and destroy anything. Lin Feng would condense the majority of his pure sun qi and grim fire to make the black lotus, but after having been to the desert on the other side of the world, he absorbed a lot of crystals from the fire wolf's crystals, making his sun qi stronger. When condensing it with his grim fire, his black lotus had become even more terrifying. Therefore, Lin Feng didn't need to use much of his pure qi reserves anymore. He still had qi left, but it was already more than enough to defeat the third envoy. Retreat! The third envoy didn't feel like fighting anymore. His magnificent 9-star annihilation had been destroyed by Lin Feng's black lotus, so he had no choice but to dodge. But even though his 9-star annihilation had been destroyed, its force was still pressing forwards with the momentum of his attack, making it difficult for him to retreat. Position of the stars, change! Shouted the third envoy furiously. His sword started diffusing a strange starlight. His speed was incredible, but he wasn't using his sword to attack, instead he was using it to dodge and retreat. But could he escape? Lin Feng smiled coldly. Wind! In a flash, he drifted on the wind and rushed forwards. The stars were still floating in the air, but Lin Feng had already arrived. His deadly energy enveloped the third envoy's body, so the third envoy hastily brandished his sword. However, it wasn't enough to block the deadly energy. In a flash, his sword was swallowed and it disappeared into the blackness. Lin Feng's eyes grew dark, the third envoy lowered his head and Lin Feng's black lotus was already in front of him, it arrived at his chest. He was terrified and desperate. A subtle sound emerged and the third envoy was astonished when he looked at his chest. Lin Feng's black lotus had just penetrated directly into his chest. The third envoy raised his head and looked to Lin Feng, he was desperate. He could only see Lin Feng's ice-cold, black eyes. Was he going to die? When the third envoy thought about dying, he felt even more hopeless and started shaking. Immediately after, he saw Lin Feng moving back. The distance between them was growing larger, Lin Feng's black deadly energy had already enveloped his entire body and black flames were consuming his insides. A shriek filled the air as the black flames engulfed the third envoy and in a flash, the third envoy disappeared from existence. The crowd all had their eyes fixed on this scene. The people from Shuiyu had seen that black lotus before, but it was much more powerful than the last time they witnessed it. The people from Tianfeng were all stunned. That deadly black lotus was unstoppable and immediately burned the third envoy to death. Lin Feng was too terrifying. Lin Feng turned around, glanced at the people from Tianfeng and then immediately started to slowly walk towards them. Step. 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 The sound of Lin Feng's footsteps thundered through the silence. Everybody was fixedly staring at Lin Feng. Was he going to continue with his challenges? Lin Feng walked towards the second envoy and stopped. Everybody was dumbstruck. Lin Feng was going to challenge the second envoy. He was ranked second strongest amongst the envoys from Tianfeng. So far, 5 weaklings and cowards, the only envoy left is you, said Lin Feng indifferently, which made people's hearts race faster. Lin Feng really wanted to challenge the second envoy to a battle to the death. He was incredible, his actions were extremely aggressive. He had challenged every single envoy from the 7th to the 2nd. He had either humiliated them or immediately killed them. He hadn't skipped a single one. Lin Feng was challenging 6 people, one after the other. The second envoy was fixedly staring at Lin Feng with a cold glare. He then slowly stood up. Alright, that's enough. That's too many battles for today. If you continue fighting, it will damage the existing friendship between Shuiyu and Tianfeng, said Ruolan Shan, which stupefied everybody. He was being a hypocrite. Lin Feng had already fought and killed people from Tianfeng, but he was only stepping in at that moment. After all, the second envoy and Lin Feng were both extremely strong and talented. If one of them died, it would be a shame. Ruolan Shan didn't want them to fight to the death, so he had to stop them. Lin Feng, that's enough, please go back to your seat, said Ruolan Shan while slightly nodding. Lin Feng glanced at the second envoy coldly. He didn't insist and said something in return. As expected, the 7 envoys are as amazing as I thought, joked Lin Feng, making those people from Tianfeng pull a long face. Lin Feng had humiliated them over and over again. A moment before, if they were able to kill Lin Feng, they could have regained some of their prestige and reputation. Therefore, when Feng Chen prevented the 4th envoy from fighting, his purpose was to have the stronger envoys fight against Lin Feng. He had hoped that the 3rd envoy would be enough to kill him. Unfortunately, the 3rd envoy was unable to kill Lin Feng, instead Lin Feng had killed him. At that moment, Lin Feng had gone back to his seat and 2 people from Tianfeng were dead, while the rest of them would be mocked as cowards and weaklings because they didn't fight. Those 6 envoys had come to Shuiyu thinking highly of themselves, thinking that they would become famous all across Shuiyu, but in the end, they were humiliated. None of them dared to speak another word. Mr. Ruo, we have already had enough fun tonight, let us end things here, said Feng Chen at that moment to Ruolan Shan while slightly bowing. Ruolan Shan glanced at Feng Chen. He obviously knew that Feng Chen and the others were not in the mood to continue the banquet, they had been humiliated. Prince Wuya, what do you think? Asked Ruolan Shan to Duan Wuya. Feng Chen and the others are probably exhausted. I will have some people prepare their rooms in my palace, as well as your room, Mr. Ruo, said Duan Wuya. He perfectly understood why they didn't want to stay. Wuya, Your Highness, just prepare a room for Ruolan Shan and the others. My people and I still haven't visited the imperial city of Shuiyu, so we don't plan to stay in the palace. We will go for a walk around the city, said Feng Chen, refusing Duan Wuya's offer. Even though he still had a magnificent smile on his face, everybody knew he was furious. The people from Tianfeng couldn't continue to act friendly with those from Shuiyu. The 7 envoys were the most outstanding young cultivators of Tianfeng, but during that night, each and every single one of them had been humiliated. They couldn't be friends anymore. It's all right as well. Go and visit the imperial city, it's a beautiful city, said Duan Wuya while smiling winsomely. His smile looked like that of a great winner, which made people from Tianfeng feel uncomfortable. All right. Everybody can disperse, said Duan Wuya while standing up and moving over to Ruolan Shan. He then said, Mr. Ruo, I'll bring you to the palace. All right, replied Ruolan Shan while slightly nodding as he left with Duan Wuya. Rao Tianshu and Jian Chen also followed behind them. While leaving, Ruolan Shan and Jian Chen glanced over at Lin Feng. Let's go, said Feng Chen and then immediately jumped up in the air. His people left with him without saying another word. Xianyi, let me bring you back to your residence, said Lin Feng to Duan Xianyi, who smiled and nodded. She then jumped onto Lin Feng's back as Lin Feng flew into the air. After Lin Feng left, somebody was still glaring at his back in an ice-cold way. It was Duan Tianlang. But Duan Tianlang only glared at Lin Feng, nothing more. He didn't talk to anybody and silently departed from the palace. In the middle of the night, Duan Tianlang was flying through the sky at full speed, but he had the feeling that someone was watching him. But Lin Feng is with the princess, thought Duan Tianlang, trying to reassure himself. Lin Feng had said, during the banquet, that he would come for him after the banquet to settle accounts. Duan Tianlang felt nervous since that moment. And now, he had the feeling that someone was watching. But when he turned his head, there was no one around. Chapter 479, Pressure. Duan Tianlang's eyes were cautious. He turned around, condensed some pure qi as he slowed down to a stop as he cautiously observed his surroundings and then moved higher into the sky. But he still had the impression that somebody was watching him. It felt like he was being stalked by a ferocious beast. He felt extremely uncomfortable. He frowned and continued to fly away at full speed. After a short time, he abruptly turned around. He spotted a fiery red silhouette which disappeared in a flash. I have spotted you already, come out, said Duan Tianlang. Even though he was a red silhouette, he didn't really know if he had spotted his pursuer. A silhouette then slowly appeared from the darkness of the night and rose into the air. Duan Tianlang was stupefied and blankly stared at that red silhouette. No wonder that he had had the feeling a ferocious beast was stalking him. It really was a ferocious beast. Besides, it looked extremely aggressive and brutal. It was covered with bright red flames and had spikes covering its body. It was flying in the air with two gigantic red wings. That ferocious beast looked terrifying. It looked sanguinary and brutal. A single glance at that beast was enough to frighten a normal person to death. It's a winged tiger, thought Duan Tianlang. He read about that beast in ancient books. That beast looked like a winged tiger, an ancient ferocious beast. Lin Feng. Duan Tianlang had come to a realization. When he saw that winged tiger, he obviously guessed that Lin Feng had sent it. Duan Tianlang had learnt that Lin Feng had a winged tiger when he had killed the people from the Wanshou sect. Lin Feng had surprisingly sent his winged tiger to chase him. Duan Tianlang looked behind the winged tiger, but saw nothing. There was nobody else. Besides, Lin Feng had definitely left with the princess a moment before. That couldn't have been faked. Lin Feng purposely sent the winged tiger to follow him. It seemed like Lin Feng was determined to kill Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang was a bit surprised. He then abruptly started moving as he flew away at his fastest speed. WSSSSS. A whistling sound suddenly spread through the air. Immediately after, Duan Tianlang heard the winged tiger emit a roar. He was stupefied. He turned around, and his heart started to race. Lin Feng had caught up with him. Duan Tianlang stopped and said, What do you want? Lin Feng said nothing. He just stared at him coldly. From Lin Feng's deep and mysterious expression, Duan Tianlang had no idea what he was thinking. The wind was gently blowing across their bodies. Duan Tianlang felt a slight chill run down his spine. That wind was ice cold and his heart felt like it was about to stop. Lin Feng's silence was extremely oppressive. Lin Feng wasn't attacking and Duan Tianlang didn't know what Lin Feng was going to do, he was just staring at him, nothing more. Finally, Duan Tianlang couldn't bear the pressure anymore, groaned coldly, and started to leave. After he started to fly away, there was no sound at all behind him and he could no longer feel Lin Feng's gaze. Duan Tianlang was extremely fast. After having flown across a huge distance, he stopped again and looked behind him. He was astonished by what he saw. Lin Feng and the winged tiger were right behind him. At that moment, Lin Feng sat atop his winged tiger. He was calmly gazing into the distance, but wasn't even looking at Duan Tianlang, which was probably why Duan Tianlang couldn't feel Lin Feng's gaze. What a terrifying speed! The winged tiger had been following him silently, there hadn't been a single sound, so Duan Tianlang hadn't even sensed that they were still behind him. That winged tiger was extremely fast and had no difficulty following behind him. Of course, ferocious beasts with wings were much faster than cultivators who had to use pure qi to fly. Besides, the winged tiger was an ancient ferocious beast with gigantic wings, which was why it was extremely quick when flying through the air. I can't escape, thought Duan Tianlang. The winged tiger was following closely behind him. He couldn't escape if he tried. Besides, Lin Feng was extremely strong. Would the incredible and majestic Duan Tianlang die by Lin Feng's hands? Would he die in the hands of someone who used to be a nobody to him? What do you want to do? Asked Duan Tianlang. Lin Feng wasn't attacking him and was only staring into the distance. The pressure in Duan Tianlang's heart was unbearable. Lin Feng remained silent as before, the silence was terrifying. He only turned to look at him. Duan Tianlang was feeling less and less comfortable, and grew more and more scared. The ancient ferocious beast and Lin Feng were both staring at him, which created a suffocating pressure. I need to go. Duan Tianlang flew away at full speed. His pure qi was whistling through the air as he flew. His speed was incredible. Duan Tianlang only wanted to escape from Lin Feng and that damned beast. Under them, the landscape was changing, they had eventually left the imperial palace and continued flying until they were flying over the imperial city. Duan Tianlang wasn't looking at anything, he was just running away with all his power. Finally, after what felt like a long time for Duan Tianlang, he moved towards the top of a large building. They had arrived at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. The wind was still blowing and Duan Tianlang rushed towards a tower. He then stopped once he reached the top of the tower. That tower was a holy place for the students of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, it was a cultivation tower. Many people, when they saw the person who was flying through the air, were excited, it was their principal, Duan Tianlang. Except, it looked like their principal was trying to escape from something. A short moment after, two silhouettes appeared in the sky. The students were shocked, it was a cultivator riding atop a ferocious beast. That cultivator was a young man, his clothes gently fluttered in the wind, he looked calm and handsome. The ferocious beast looked extremely dangerous, cruel and sanguinary. It was impossible to say to what category that beast belonged. What's going on? The students were shocked and gazed at the young man and his beast. It was very strange, it seemed like they were chasing the principal. It's Lin Feng. That's Lin Feng. Some of the people who had gone to Xiangjiang Lake recognized Lin Feng at first glance. Lin Feng and his terrifying ferocious beast were chasing their principal, Duan Tianlang. Duan Tianlang fixedly stared at Lin Feng and his ferocious beast when he said, "If you don't want to fight, why do you keep following me? What do you want to do?" The crowd noticed that Duan Tianlang looked flustered and exasperated. Besides, his voice was trembling and he looked terrified. Lin Feng replied indifferently, "Why are you so scared of me? Are you scared that I will kill you? In the past, you strutted around like you were majestic and domineering, where has the noble Duan Tianlang gone? Lin Feng's words painfully pierced through Duan Tianlang's eardrums and stunned him. Duan Tianlang's social status and strength were only jokes to Lin Feng. He was mocking Duan Tianlang. At that moment, the crowd understood that Lin Feng was chasing their principal Duan Tianlang. Besides, their strong and powerful principal was terrified, he was afraid of Lin Feng. It really looked like a big joke. Their principal was scared of a disciple of the Celestial Academy. However, it was actually always that way, the disciples would always surpass their masters with time, in the academies or sects, this was often the case. Lin Feng had become much stronger than most of the patriarchs and elders from most sects, and even many teachers at other academies. Lin Feng had the power to despise and mock their principal. Duan Tianlang remained silent. No words would come out. He didn't look majestic and domineering anymore. Those who had sufficient strength could act in a domineering manner, and that was the only case when they had enough strength. Whoosh! Many people jumped through the air and stood by Duan Tianlang's side. They were all staring at Lin Feng with cold glares. They were the strongest teachers of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. But at that moment, they all looked like they were facing their worst nightmare, Lin Feng. At Xiangjiang Lake, Lin Feng had proven just how strong he was, but at that moment, his calm appearance looked even more terrifying. Surprisingly, he was acting aggressively at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. How arrogant could he be? Chapter 480, Hope. Lin Feng, you're too arrogant, said a teacher while staring at Lin Feng. Lin Feng glanced at them. Arrogant? He was stronger than them, why would he care about how he acted? In the past, when Duan Tianlang had taken people to destroy the Yunhai sect, hadn't he acted arrogantly? Duan Tianlang had killed hundreds of thousands of individuals, had plotted against Lin Feng and created false charges against him. Wasn't that being arrogant? Arrogant? So what? Said Lin Feng indifferently, which stupefied everyone. They were only staring at Lin Feng, wanted to say something, but words didn't come out. What could they do against him? Who here had the power to reprimand Lin Feng? Duan Tianlang, alone, couldn't defeat Lin Feng. Maybe there was only a small chance if they all were to fight Lin Feng together. Principal, let's work together and kill him, said someone while looking towards Duan Tianlang. At that moment, 5 people joined Duan Tianlang and they were all at the Xianqi layer. If they acted together, they might have a chance. However, Duan Tianlang remained silent. Work together? Kill Lin Feng. Lin Feng could easily kill people the first few Xianqi layers, it was as easy as falling off a log for him. His ancient ferocious beast could also quickly people of the second Xianqi layer. In the past, they might have a chance to kill Lin Feng if they acted together, but at that moment, Duan Tianlang knew exactly how strong Lin Feng had become. Therefore he didn't have any hope. Lin Feng could kill people of the 5th Xianqi layer, so it would be no effort for him to kill them all. The strongest of them had only broken through to the 4th Xianqi layer, that was all. Lin Feng had even killed the 7th envoy of Tian Feng using a single attack, and he was also at the 4th Xianqi layer. Duan Tianlang remained silent, which stupefied the middle-aged man who had just proposed working together. He knew Duan Tianlang well, he was proud and aloof, conceited and determined. Duan Tianlang didn't care about killing people, so if they were able to kill Lin Feng, Duan Tianlang would have immediately seized the opportunity to do so, but he was remaining silent. The terrifying truth was that they couldn't kill Lin Feng. The atmosphere was silent, which was extremely oppressive. The student of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu was silently observing the silhouettes in the sky. The situation was extremely tense. If Lin Feng wanted to kill them all, nobody could stop him. Lin Feng could do it alone, no even counting his beast. The holy courtyard of Shuiyu had been created with plans to become the largest sphere of influence. What a joke. They couldn't even deal with Lin Feng. You want to kill me? said Lin Feng to that person who just spoke while smiling. He was smiling coldly and continued, I never show mercy to people who say they want to kill me. You are no exception. Lin Feng's voice was ice cold, and the person started to shake. Cheong Chi, go deal with him, said Lin Feng. The winged tiger's silhouette flickered, its pure chi was released, and the winged tiger roared intensely. It rushed through the air and attacked. Its two large eyes were filled with an ominous glint. It was beating its wings extremely quickly as it dashed through the air. The person who had just proposed to kill Lin Feng was at the second Xian Qi layer, and the winged tiger was a level 2 Xian beast. The winged tiger could fly faster than a cultivator, much faster. That person had only just condensed some pure qi in his hand when he was forced to punch towards the incoming winged tiger, but the winged tiger only swiped with its sharp claws which landed directly on that person's chest. Even though they had tried to dodge, a deep wound appeared on the person's chest, and it was pouring with blood. It was a gruesome wound. Boom! A monumental amount of qi appeared in the atmosphere. There were many people who were condensing pure qi, causing the energy to become extremely dense. The teachers from the holy courtyard of Shuayu were attacking the winged tiger at the same time. Whoever dares attack is my enemy, and I always kill my enemies, said Lin Feng indifferently, which made the teachers immediately stop moving. Their pure qi grew weaker and eventually dispersed. Roar! The winged tiger roared violently. The person who had just been attacked by the winged tiger had a deep wound on their chest and looked deathly pale. But when the ancient ferocious beast saw blood, it would become even more excited, so the winged tiger continued its attacks. It continued beating its wings and moved towards the person like an illusion. The students suddenly realized that the individual's head had suddenly disappeared. There was only a neck which was spraying blood into the air. Many people let out terrified shrieks, they were panicking. How cruel! The ancient ferocious beast was horrifying. It had immediately beheaded the teacher and was now gnashing the head between its teeth. Everyone's hearts were pounding brutally. What surprised them the most was that none of the teachers dared to stop the beast. Because Lin Feng spoke out, they hadn't interfered. They could only watch their colleague get killed by Lin Feng's winged tiger. What an absolute humiliation. Before, they used to think that the holy courtyard of Shuayu was incredible. However, at that moment, that splendor was being destroyed. The teacher had just been killed by a beast in front of his colleagues, and nobody had dared to move. How humiliating. It was clear everyone there that strength was all that mattered. Lin Feng was unyielding and was able to come to the holy courtyard of Shuayu and kill people as he wished. He could threaten Duan Tianlang, who was a member of the Duan clan, and he could kill the teachers. Nobody would try to stop him. Their principal had accepted the humiliation because he was powerless to do anything. He was trying to escape from Lin Feng, who was why he rushed back to the holy courtyard of Shuayu. The winged tiger roared violently and went back to Lin Feng's side. It looked extremely excited, and its eyes were filled with bloodlust. Ancient ferocious beasts were always cruel and bloodthirsty by nature. They would never grow docile as their vicious nature passed through their ancient bloodline. Blood would arouse the natural viciousness hiding in their bloodline. Duan Tianlang, don't you think that the holy courtyard of Shuayu is ridiculous? Joked Lin Feng in an ice-cold tone while looking at Duan Tianlang. What do you want to do? Asked Duan Tianlang again. What else could he say? He didn't know what Lin Feng wanted, but he was terrified. He had followed him all the way to the holy courtyard of Shuayu but hadn't attacked a single time. It was a terrifying pressure. Duan Tianlang was shaking from head to toe. Are you so scared of death? Said Lin Feng while smiling coldly. In the past, when you came and destroyed the Yunhai sect, didn't you think there might be consequences? Duan Tianlang had, of course, never bothered about things like consequences. He had destroyed the Yunhai sect, killed all its members except for a few stragglers and the geniuses whom he had taken with him to the holy courtyard of Shuayu. Apart from Lin Feng and the ones he sold as slaves, the Yunhai sect had been annihilated, but he would never have thought that one of the survivors would come for revenge. "Don't worry. I will not kill you today," said Lin Feng, which stupefied Duan Tianlang. Wasn't he going to kill him? Since Lin Feng didn't want to kill him at that moment, what did he want to do? "How could I kill you now? I still want you to witness the resurrection of the Yunhai sect with your own eyes, the same Yunhai sect which you once destroyed. And I also want you to see the extermination of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, similar to how I witnessed the destruction of the Yunhai sect," said Lin Feng calmly. He then continued slowly, "You thought that the destruction of the Yunhai sect meant the rise of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu? But I will show you that the destruction of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu means the resurrection of the Yunhai sect." When Duan Tianlang heard Lin Feng, his heart started beating faster. He finally understood what Lin Feng wanted. What ambition! Lin Feng surprisingly wanted the Yunhai sect to rise to glory with the destruction of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu, just like what Duan Tianlang had done, but in reverse. The students at the foot of the tower were astonished. Lin Feng wanted to destroy the holy courtyard of Shuiyu? "You will fail," said Duan Tianlang while staring at Lin Feng. But Lin Feng smiled. He smiled in a particularly confident manner. Was he going to fail? "You will see, in a few days," said Lin Feng calmly. He sounded extremely confident that the Yunhai sect would be resurrected. Nan Gongling and the others who died, they put their hopes and dreams on my shoulders. I was their last hope. I promised this to everyone and especially to Protector Bai," said Lin Feng while raising his head and showing his ring to Duan Tianlang. It meant that he was now the patriarch of the Yunhai sect. The members of the Yunhai sect had sacrificed their lives to save Lin Feng. They hoped that Lin Feng would be able to revive the glory of the Yunhai sect. How could Lin Feng forget his promise? All those people would have died for nothing. The Patriarch's Ring. When Duan Tianlang saw the ring, he understood that Lin Feng was already the patriarch of the Yunhai sect. He suddenly felt strange. Maybe Lin Feng would be able to resurrect the Yunhai sect, perhaps it would prosper because Lin Feng had endless determination. Chapter 481, 18 Xian Cultivators. Lin Feng was proudly leaving the holy courtyard of Shuiyu without any obstruction. Everyone at the holy courtyard of Shuiyu was staring at Lin Feng's back. They felt responsible for allowing Lin Feng to humiliate them. On top of that, he had even killed their teacher. Besides, Lin Feng had ignored the others on purpose. If Lin Feng wished, he could have killed all of them, even those cultivators who were floating in the sky. Lin Feng hadn't killed Duan Tianlang because he wanted him to see everything with his own eyes, the resurrection of the Yunhai sect and the destruction of the holy courtyard of Shuiyu. In the middle of the night, a ferocious beast and a cultivator were flying through the sky above the imperial city. The ferocious beast's fur was bright red and it looked majestic. Lin Feng was sitting on the back of the winged tiger and his eyes were closed, when he suddenly opened his eyes which contained a cold look. Lin Feng wasn't the only one who sensed something. The winged tiger roared and stopped in the air. It then glanced around. A group of pitch-black silhouettes slowly appeared in Lin Feng and the winged tiger's fields of vision. Those people were all flying in the sky. They had approached silently. They were all cultivators of the Xianqi layer. They arrived in front of Lin Feng and stopped. They didn't encircle Lin Feng, but a dazzling blade light twinkled under the moonlight. That sword looked extremely cold. How cold? At that moment, the atmosphere was so oppressive that it would make people's soul shake. 18 cultivators of the Xianqi layer. Lin Feng glanced around and counted them. There were 18 cultivators and they were all holding blades. They clearly considered Lin Feng to be a great threat. "Who are you?" asked Lin Feng. Even though he didn't expect them to reply, he still asked. He was wondering what social status those people had. He had offended many people, but there weren't many people who could send such a powerful group for him. The Wan Shou sect or the Yu clan could send out 18 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer, but each of these people were blade cultivators. So they couldn't have been sent by the Wan Shou sect or the Yu clan. They didn't have that many blade cultivators. Maybe a few great spheres of influence had prepared this group by combining their power. Besides, there was also Tianfeng. An entire country could, of course, easily send such a group of people. However, how could the Tianfeng country send so many cultivators over to Shuiyu without notice? Especially sending them into the imperial city to kill Lin Feng. The government of Shuiyu wasn't stupid, they would have noticed them and intercepted the foreign cultivators. Feng Chen wasn't foolish, he already had the opportunity to kill Lin Feng, but Ruolan Shan was clearly opposed to Lin Feng being harmed. If Feng Chen wanted to kill Lin Feng, he wasn't able to do it so openly. Lin Feng was wondering who those people were and who had the power to send 18 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer. "We're people who want to kill you," said one of them coldly. Then, the 18 cultivators each took out their blades in almost perfect synchronization, which created a clear and melodious sound. Those blades were so bright with blade qi that Lin Feng had to narrow his eyes. When Lin Feng narrowed his eyes, those blades flickered and rushed forwards. Blades were moving towards Lin Feng from both his sides and from the front. Each of those blades wanted to take his life. Wind. Lin Feng started to drift freely in the wind. He was extremely agile and unbelievably fast. The sharp blades streaked across the sky, creating a breathtaking scene. Lin Feng could only narrow his eyes because the lights from the blades were too dazzling. Those people were not even attempting to kill the winged tiger, they were solely targeting Lin Feng. At that moment, the blades were surrounding him. Those people had encircled him with only one movement. A subtle sound spread in the air. Lin Feng's body shook and a sword appeared in his hand as his sword energy invaded the atmosphere. But he immediately felt a sense of danger around him. He felt like he wouldn't get a chance to use his full strength to fight. Lin Feng jumped away from the winged tiger and flew into the air. His sword light followed the winds and shot forwards, causing the incoming enemies to retreat. But others who attacked from other directions continued their attacks, their twinkling blades rushed towards Lin Feng. An extremely sharp blade energy filled the air and lacerated the atmosphere. Boom! Lin Feng's sword energy collided with the incoming blade energy. The shockwave which resulted from the collision tore through the atmosphere. An incredibly strong wind blasted in every direction. Lin Feng was stupefied. Those people were all using blades and they were working together, in formation. They were in perfect harmony with each other and it was extremely difficult to find a weak point in their formation. At that moment, above and behind Lin Feng, there were only blades which were diffusing a sharp qi towards Lin Feng's body. It seemed like they were not going to give Lin Feng a single second of rest. A terrifying, deadly energy emerged from Lin Feng's body and burst into the sky. His eyes grew black and emotionless. No matter who those people were, he would kill them. Roar! Lin Feng released his terrifying purple spirit, and a purple lake filled the atmosphere. His extremely strong soul then emerged from his body and merged with the purple spirit, which then started to rapidly transform. Huh! Those 18 cultivators were surprised when they saw the purple lake because it wasn't attacking them or even surrounding them, it seemed to be spinning and spreading across sky. It invaded the entire atmosphere, which gradually became darker as the purple spirit appeared to block all of the light from the starry sky. Boom! The sound of a collision emerged in the air. Lin Feng used the force of their attack to propel his body backwards, but they immediately gave chase. Suddenly, the purple lake fell from the sky and submerged them along with Lin Feng. It surrounded them and they were no longer able to see Lin Feng. If they hastily retreated, it would give Lin Feng an opportunity to attack them out of formation. "How did we end up being surrounded?" asked one of them. They all glanced at the others. There were 18 of them and all of them had been trapped by the purple spirit. "Let's attack together," said one of them. That purple spirit was a threat to them, it had trapped them inside and seemed to be restraining their movements. Suddenly, they no longer had any sense of direction or time, it looked like they were submerged inside a purple world. When they tried to think clearly, they found out that they couldn't see any of their colleagues anymore. They seemed to be entirely alone. One of them noticed that he was trapped inside, he was imprisoned. 9 Palace Dragon Formation. Everybody frowned. They, of course, recognized that palace, it was an illusion, but it wasn't used to kill people, it was used to imprison people. Lin Feng was standing outside of the illusion and watching as a cold light flashed through his eyes. He took a step and immediately appeared in front of one of them inside the illusion, which stupefied the man. At that moment, he was directly opposite Lin Feng. "Tell me who you people are," said Lin Feng coldly. The man's eyes twinkled, but he remained silent. "If you don't want to talk, then die," said Lin Feng, moving like the wind towards the man. In a flash, he appeared in front of his opponent and attacked with his deadly sword, but the man brandished his dazzling blade in return. However, the assassin was alone. Could he stop Lin Feng's sword? His blade was absorbed into Lin Feng's deadly energy, which terrified him. Immediately after, his body was split into 2 by Lin Feng's sword. Lin Feng didn't even turn to look at him. He took another step and arrived in another purple room. There was a female assassin in that room who was shocked and looked pale. "Who sent you to kill me?" asked Lin Feng again. She stared at Lin Feng and replied in an ice-cold tone, "Lin Feng, I never would have believed that you'd be able to create the 9 Palace Dragon Formation. You're lucky, but that won't save you next time. Even if there's a next time, you won't be alive to see it," said Lin Feng while running forwards and attacking with his deadly sword. In a flash, she was dead as well. Lin Feng continued killing those people inside the illusion. All those cultivators of the Xian Qi layer were dying one by one inside Lin Feng's illusion. After killing those 18 people, the illusion disappeared, and Lin Feng was standing in the lonely night sky. He looked like a death god, but he didn't seem proud or arrogant. He already had an extremely high social status, he was Yu Menghe's son and part of Duan Wuya's faction. Ruolan Shan had also showed a liking to him, but some foolish people still dared to try and assassinate him. Besides, the 18 were all trained in a particular formation, so those people probably belonged to a very influential group. The scariest part was that none of the 18 had revealed the name of whom they worked, even when threatened with death. That type of enemy was extremely terrifying, and that group must be extremely powerful. Chapter 482, Thousands of Arrows. A large number of people followed the Dragon Mountain Empire from Tianfeng and traveled to Shuiyu. During the banquet, Lin Feng humiliated the 7 envoys of Tianfeng one after the other and even killed 2 of them. During the night after the banquet, 18 cultivators of the Xian Qi layer had appeared and had tried to kill Lin Feng with a blade formation, but in the end, they had completely failed. Lin Feng's battle ability was made clear at Xiangjiang Lake. It seemed like something big was going to happen in Shuiyu. People couldn't really describe it, but they knew that something important was going to happen and nobody could predict the aftermath. Outside of the imperial city, thousands of kilometers away, something astonishing was happening as well. A certain location was in complete ruins, but the news hasn't spread to the imperial city. The strongest sect of the country, the Haoyu sect, had been completely destroyed. On that day, 10,000 of Qi Xia armored cavalry had entered the territory of the Haoyu sect and annihilated everything in their path. Blood flowed like a river. The entire sect had been destroyed and the Haoyu sect would vanish into history. Apart from some people who were outside and a few who had managed to escape, everybody was killed without mercy. The entire sect had become a river of blood. The massacre had lasted for an entire day. At dusk, black crows and ferocious hawks were flying around above the territory of the Hallyu sect and sometimes swooping down to eat the dead flesh from the countless bodies. It looked apocalyptic and desolate. The setting sun reflected on the surface of the Blood River, giving off an eerie feel. At that moment, the troops who destroyed the sect were already on their way to their next location. In the mountain chain where the Hallyu sect was, there was a group of people who gathered around to see the aftermath of the attack. Looking at the piles of corpses and river of blood, they felt a chill down in their soul. This was the world of cultivation, it was cruel and sanguinary. They, of course, knew who those troops were. The Qi Xia troops belonged to Officer Lin Feng from Yangzhou City. Besides, Lin Feng also used to be a disciple of the Yunhai sect. In the past, the Hallyu sect had participated in the extermination of the Yunhai sect. It had been, just like Hallyu sect was at that moment, a bloodbath. Lin Feng had started taking his revenge. In the past, he was only a very talented disciple from the Yunhai sect, but at that moment, he was already a famous genius in Shuiyu. He, of course, wanted to get his revenge. He hated those who destroyed his sect. The Hallyu sect wasn't going to be the last sect on his list though, it was only the beginning. Actually, the Hallyu sect wasn't even a start, the revenge had only just begun. Thousands of kilometers away from the Hallyu sect, there was the Yunhai mountain chain. Everybody in the mountain chain was in a state of full alert. Every possible exit was blocked, except for the one leading to the Black Wind Mountain. Every other entrance and exit was blocked. The Qi Xia troops had already been there for 7 days. During those 7 days, no one was able to enter or exit. Only people who were from the surroundings of the Yunhai mountain chain were allowed to leave. It had been evacuated of all bystanders almost instantly. If they had stayed, they would have died. Who would have dared to stay? Those Qi Xia troops had come to avenge the Yunhai sect. If anyone dared infuriate them, they would be courting death. Around the mountain chain, the Qi Xia troops were calmly waiting. They looked cold and remained in perfect formation while being absolutely silent. Some people, even though they had already left the mountain chain, hadn't left the surrounding area, they were just standing in the distance and observing what was going to happen. They wanted to see if the Qi Xia troops would really go on a rampage. At that moment, on the peaks of the Yunhai mountain chain, everybody was terrified. They were frightened beyond belief. They had already been encircled for 7 days and they didn't know what was going to happen, they might all be slaughtered. Everybody feared death, some people were more scared than others, but in the end, when facing death, everybody would be scared. Not being scared of death was impossible, it was a natural instinct. Besides, they couldn't leave, so they could only wait for death. The wait was driving them insane and many had already lost all hope. The people who remained were people from the Hallyu sect, the Ice and Snow Mountain Village, the Wanshou sect and the Holy Courtyard of Shuiyu. They had divided the entire Yunhai mountain and established military bases there. The Black Wind Mountain, a good hunting ground which was extremely attractive to the sects, they were all delighted to have access to it. But at that moment, the Yunhai mountain looked and felt like a mountain of doom. They wanted to leave but they couldn't. Suddenly the situation became chaotic. Everyone tried to run away, they wanted to escape immediately, but the cavalry had started galloping towards them in perfect formation. The armored cavalry had finally started to move after encircling them for 7 days. Were they going to attack? Everybody wanted to escape, but because of the Qi Xia cavalry, they were all being forced into the same direction. They were being pushed to the center of a valley by the horses. The troops were forcing them all to gather in the same location. In the center of that valley, the people started to pour in by the thousands. They were looking to their right and left only to see more people pouring in from every direction. They were all growing more scared when they noticed this. They knew that those troops were probably going to kill them. But what could they do? They were surrounded by a powerful army and were clearly outmatched. They had no choice. In the end, a huge group of people gathered in the middle of the valley. When they looked up to the cliffs of the valley, they could see the Qi Xie troops looking down on them. They all looked cold and detached and were releasing some deadly qi as they all reached for their bows. Many people's hearts were pounding violently. This scene was similar to what happened in the past. Back then, Duan Tianlang had come to the Yunhai sect with the other sects and had slaughtered the Yunhai sect. History was repeating itself. However, in the valley, there weren't any people from the Yunhai sect. The scene looked the same, but the positions had been reversed. Only those who annihilated the Yunhai sect were forced into the valley. Nobody had ever thought that such a thing would happen. The atmosphere was deathly silent and oppressive. In the distance, a whistling sound spread through the air. Very quickly, everyone noticed two silhouettes. It was Lin Feng riding his winged tiger. His pure white clothes were fluttering in the wind as he looked down towards the valley. That beast was bright red like fire and had two gigantic wings. Everyone was terrified of the vicious beast. Everybody looked up at the silhouettes in the sky. However, what frightened people more than the winged tiger was when they recognized the person riding it. Lin Feng had come back. He had come to avenge the Yunhai sect. A few years before, he was a low-level disciple of the Yunhai sect. He had just broken through to the Ling Qi layer. Now, he was like a blazing star in the sky. He had become the Marquis of Yangzhou City, the Qi Xie Marquis, and had a powerful army under his control. He was also riding a terrifying Xian-level beast and had now returned to the Yunhai sect with a tremendous power. If the Yunhai sect still existed, Lin Feng's return would have been glorious. However, the Yunhai sect had been exterminated and all Lin Feng wanted to do was massacre those responsible. Lin Feng had returned for revenge. Lin Feng didn't continue looking down at those people. Instead, he looked towards the mountain chain. He could see all the places he remembered from the past, but only coldness filled his eyes. A debt of blood had to be paid with blood. He slowly turned his head and looked at the valley, the stormy gorge. There was an arena in the center, the life and death arena. Lin Feng could remember his time at the stormy gorge and the life and death arena. At that moment, he could clearly remember all those people who had long since died. He could remember how Lu Fei had chased him. He could remember Protector Kong who protected him along with Protector Bai's kind smile. Lin Feng looked down at the crowd in the stormy gorge. He despised all of them. Those people were like vermin in Lin Feng's eyes. He looked at them the same way they looked at the Yunhai sect in the past. Lin Feng slowly rose his hand and in a flash, countless whistling sounds spread through the air which was immediately invaded by a deadly qi. Thousands and thousands of arrows were shot into the air, aiming directly for the people inside the valley. Everyone inside the valley was panicking. They were shaking as they saw the cloud of arrows falling from the sky. They all looked terrified. In that heartless world, people would show no mercy to their enemies. Blood was the only way to repay blood. Lin Feng only raised his hand into the air and thousands upon thousands of arrows were unleashed into the air. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.